was that the paper map that was from yesterday?
Yep.
Can I take a quick look at it?
No.
Because that whole thing that we call it, oh, see, it looks a lot.
All right, it's 9
Well,
o'clock.
anybody that's
Different.
colorblind.
The
would have-
first
No.
item on the
Electronic.
agenda is rails to trails, Diane McGowan.
Well, good morning, you two.
For a county planning grant.
I said, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
So, that's exactly it, Dwayne, thank you. First of all, I just wanna, I think everybody, well, not everybody knows everybody, but Amanda, this is Amanda Cooley from Powell County, and what is your title?
I am the planning director for Powell County.
Oh.
I am the planning department for Powell County.
It's kind of like our place.
Yeah.
So, and this is Dawn Terrell, our new commissioner,
Hi,
and
welcome.
Dwayne Simon's our old commissioner.
I'm not that old, well, I guess.
He's old in every way.
And you already met Renee. Renee is the what, administrative assistant?
She's a commissioner in training.
Yeah.
Ah.
Well, you're throwing all kinds of things at me today.
Yeah, you never know around here.
I just got told I'm not gonna get paid to do
Yeah.
this job.
So,
That is not what I said. I said it may be slow coming.
I think I added that you don't get paid.
Oh, okay.
And Jim Goss, you
Hi,
know.
Renee, I guess
Hi.
I don't really know you, but Jim Goss. Yeah.
Jim is
Nice to
one of
meet
the
you.
board members for Rails to Trail, our Mineral County, Montana Rails to Trails group. And
Name's Clayton,
Clayton.
Clayton Lorga.
And Clayton, you are with anybody? Just on your own?
Just a
Just
citizen.
visiting.
Just a citizen? So is this being recorded
Yes, it is.
right already?
Yes, it is.
So we're on the record, okay. And you must be the
Thank you.
recorder helper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd rather be in bed.
Yeah,
I have to get up as early
Me
as
too.
me, I promise.
yeah, kind of unanimous. So what we want to do today is have Amanda explain what we're doing with the multi-county grant. Jackson Lee from Missoula County, probably about 4 months ago, formed a group that consists of Amanda from Powell County and Jackson and several people from Missoula County. And he's with the county recreation department, whatever it is. So he's a county employee. But, and then our group, which is a nonprofit group, obviously. So we're the only nonprofit, but I believe, and Amanda can talk more about it soon, that Granite County is also coming on board. And the goal of that group is to work on the Great American Rail Trail as it comes through all of our counties in a consolidated manner. So, I mean, we'll still be responsible for pieces that come in through Monroe County, but I understand that we'll work together on grant funding or
So that's what I was just gonna say. Could you clarify that, responsible for? What does that mean? It must be financially because you just said grant funding.
So I can clarify that.
yeah, she'll clarify that when she
Okay.
comes to it, but yeah. So this is just one of the projects that we're doing right now, is looking at this planning grant for the overall piece from hopefully maybe even Butte Silverbow up to the state line. So now I will turn it over to Amanda.
Thanks, Diane. Hi, thank you for having me. It was really a pleasure to be able to travel over here today and get out of my office and my beautiful courthouse and come see another one. This is my first time presenting in front of another board of commissioners, so I'm glad to be here.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you. So, as Diane mentioned, we have created, well, I'll back up a little bit. So, Dawn, were you around when they did that, when Kevin Bellinger came through a couple months ago? And he did a
Kevin Bellinger?
presentation
When we
on
met
that.
with you guys at
I've
And
been
then you
here.
did
I'm
the
just
tour,
not recalling
the
that
day
it
you
was.
did the tour. And-
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, they
Okay.
both
Well,
were.
thank you, Diane. I'm a little bit old too.
Well, Kevin's name is different anyway, so that would even confuse things more.
That's why I was confused.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, forgetful doesn't have an age, I don't think. But, so he came through and I think, he was kind of highlighting some of the projects that are already happening in Mineral County and really, I think, focusing on the economic, the bottom line for all of us is, yes, it would cost money to do, and if we were to pursue any planning or construction, it would cost money. But, so, in order to just, I think, I should have thought that. Anyways, so So when Kevin was here, he was presenting the economic study that our local Headwaters Economics did that would kind of show some of the economic benefits if that trail were constructed. But we're gonna back way up from that. So as Diane mentioned, we have kind of put together this, we're calling it a cross-county trail group. And really all we're doing is just having a conversation about what this trail might look like. And we're just kind of pooling our resources to determine if there are priority areas. In Mineral County, that would be like the Saltese Trestle. So we're just planning right now. And so our group has been meeting about monthly to discuss what our priority areas are, just to kind of understand if there is alignment with, with a trail connection at some point. And through these conversations, we found that there definitely is some potential, I think, to work together and think about what a trail would look like. And so this grant opportunity is just to help pay for those conversations. So the grant opportunity that we're looking at is a race planning grant. It would pay to just plan the trail. And so there's no match, and there would be no match required. So if we, I guess, let's see. So the color printout that I gave you, it just kind of highlights the presentation that Kevin presented. So we have that this project would overall be part of the Great American Rail Trail. It gives you kind of some information about what that trail consists of. And then on the third page, you can see that there's kind of this big empty box between Missoula and Saltese. And so this planning grant is just an opportunity to explore what that connection would look like. So the way that this would benefit Mineral County would be that ultimately, if the trail was constructed, that it could bring in $1.2 million in visitor spending, 14 new jobs, and $40,000 in tax revenue. But again, we're just planning, and so I guess the bottom line question, right, is, well, what is it going to cost you? I think that's the question that we're all asking ourselves. So this collaboration is an opportunity to pursue a much larger grant ceiling than we would be able to if we were just looking at individual counties. So that's why I'm coming to you, is to invite Mineral County to be part of the opportunity to pursue just a planning grant. So Mineral County would get to decide what is included in that grant. You could look at your priority areas, you could look at safety, you could tie in other transportation priorities. If you guys have interest or issues with floodplain risk or floodplain mitigation, this planning grant would just take a look at those things and help you think about ways to overcome that. It would fund the planning of how to address those issues. Now, as far as cost, the only thing that we're looking at as far as cost is that it will be $15,000 to write the grant. The strength is that we have up to 6 counties partnering in this project, and so we can distribute that cost among 6 counties. I am actively looking for ways to offset that investment. Hey, come on in.
Hey, no problem. I'm not slacking. I'm doing felonies this morning, because Deb's gone.
Okay.
We got 2 with a large quantity of illegal stuff on the seat of the car.
Well, thanks for checking in, Wally.
Are you gonna be
Thank you
in?
for checking in.
Yeah, I will be. I'm in, but I was happy to do these before I do anything else.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we hit like 4 pounds of amphetamine.
You'll be in at 10:30 then.
What?
You'll be in at 10:30?
Should be, yeah.
Okay.
No, not should be.
You need
Will
to be.
Yeah,
Will be?
Will be.
You're required.
Unless the judge has got me on the floor holding me down. I want to deal with you guys or go to jail. That's my choice.
Oh, jail would be nice. 3 meals and a bed and
2 squares.
3 squares,
Right?
whatever it is. Yeah. That was our deputy county attorney.
Oh, okay. Oh, great, okay. So I'm actively pursuing opportunities to offset the cost to write this grant. I found out on Monday that we could potentially get $7,500 from the Big Sky Trust Fund. So I had 2 very long nights this week writing a grant to try and get that funding. I had a really great conversation with the grant administrator at the Big Sky Trust Fund. She did feel like this request for $7,500 to write this grant, she did feel like it might score low in their priorities, but she was really supportive of the project, and that goes a really long way, you know, for potential, I guess, funding. So the most that we would ask for mineral and granite counties would be $2,500. And Diane has also actively been working very hard to secure funding for that. So my anticipation is that we wouldn't actually ask Mineral County for anything as far as the cost. So the only thing that we're asking for is just for you to be a partner in the project, and we would just pay to look at a trail planning document.
So, Mineral County would be a co-applicant, right?
Correct.
But, Powell County, meaning Amanda, would do all the administration part of the grant. So we would not have any administrative costs or
That's also
duties.
correct.
Yes.
Yep, that's also correct.
So we won't be piling more on Emily, in other words.
That's a good
And
thing.
what,
Yeah.
she said you would be looking at,
Okay, I talked with Emily yesterday, and we wanted to be here, but person,
she's here.
Emily, come on up. Emily's gonna explain it. I thought you had to go to the doctor.
Make Doug take it.
Is he the one that made me sick?
No, Doug didn't have it, Dominic did.
Well, so, Emily,
Well, I haven't
do
seen
you
him.
wanna talk about our conversation? Emily is our economic development coordinator,
Agent, yeah.
Mineral
I work
County
for
Economic-
MSU
Secret
Extension.
Oh, great.
secret agent.
Yeah, and so I work for the county and then MSU as well.
Oh, beautiful.
So she administers our local grants.
Yeah, we love our agent. We
Yeah.
love our MSP agent.
I got one question before we get into
Yeah.
deep with Emily. So on this explanation of what it would bring in for the state, it says 800,000 in new tax revenue.
Mhm.
Where would the new tax revenue come from?
So I'm guessing that would be from, they did provide some documentation that supports how they came up with this, and I have not had time to go through that because this has happened very quickly. But my anticipation is that would be from new businesses created. So, you know, if there's an ice cream shop that opens up along the trail corridor,
Okay.
so that's
Okay.
where I anticipate that would come
All
from.
right.
Bike
So that's the
shops.
Headwaters
Mm-hmm.
study, and I think we gave that to you when, you met
Yeah,
with
this
you.
is the full Montana study, and then I've got a copy of the Mineral County one, but I figured
I think
you
we
guys-
all did too,
Yeah,
yeah.
I figured you had that.
I was just curious. Okay.
Yep, well, yeah. So, and Kevin would be the person maybe to talk to more about that if you do have more questions. And we could always get him on the phone or
All
whatever.
right, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. I think before I start, I kind of have a question for you. You said that you guys are applying for that planning grant, through Big Sky Trust Fund. So if you get that, then Mineral County doesn't need to contribute anything, or there was still
It would be
a small portion?
so it'll depend on how many partners that we get on board and whether or not we get that funding. So there will be no more than $2,500 needed. We'll put a cap at that. Granite or Powell County and Missoula County will pay 2/3 to write the grant, period. Then if we do get that funding, then Mineral, if we get the funding and we get all 6 partners on board, Mineral would only have to pay $550.
Okay,
So I kind of outlined some of this stuff in that paper that I gave you. It's got some of these variables,
Did you give her one?
but it'll be as small as 550 and as much as 2,500.
okay, so like if the commissioners were to write a letter of, commitment, it would just be up to the 2,500.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
So that 7,500 would reduce it, would you say it across the board for each county? Distributed evenly, I don't know how you'd say that, but
Yeah,
does that make
exactly.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, so, from a standpoint for us, you know, there is funding available, and I don't know if you're aware of this as well, like through DNRC, they have those local government assistance grants that we usually get. And those are to support projects. So, I think that Steve Kimball could be a contact for that to find out if that's an eligible use. And so that right there, they're usually up to $10,000, so I think that is probably a good option. They become available again in March. It's the deadline to submit for those, and then, it's good for 2 years. So I think that could help cover with some of the costs, but if that's not an avenue, there's some other options we could take to supply that funding without, the
So-
county necessarily having to come up with it.
Without the county necessarily having to come up with it. So where that leads me is, we all know that when Mineral County first agreed to join, it was absolutely no financial contribution
To join what?
to get on board with this.
No, I think this
Yeah.
one's different. You're thinking of the Big Sky Rail Trail.
Yeah, there's
This is a different
Okay,
one.
okay. So,
okay.
did
So
you,
that's why I was getting
okay,
confused,
yeah. Well, didn't you take over Big Sky Rail Trail
Yes.
as president, or?
Well, I'm
No.
Mineral County, Montana Rails to Trails, but Kevin Ballinger, the
thinking-
guy that was
As
here.
what did you take over for Roman?
Oh, that's the passenger. Really, already?
We have a lot of these going on. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that, because then I was
That's what we said we
concerned.
would-
Yes,
we would
okay,
contribute.
Yes.
okay, my
We're not.
apologies, but thank you for clearing
Yes,
that up.
yes.
You're like, wait a minute, what? You're getting ahead of where I thought we were at in the conversation.
So I guess one question I do have, Amanda, when do you need that money by? It's for the grant writer, and the grant
Yes.
writer has to start. The grant is due February 28th, I believe, so the grant writer has to start writing right after Christmas.
Yeah, so that's
I'm
one of the
sure.
other challenges of this is we were kind of going along having these great conversations, but then we found out 15 days ago about this grant opportunity, and it's due at the end of February. So that's why I'm out here kind of hustling to see if we can make this work or not. Fortunately, so I was able to secure a quote for what it would cost to write the grant application from Great West Engineering. Those are the engineers that Powell County works with, and we have a great relationship with them, and they quoted me $25,000. And so we went and we asked the engineering firm that Missoula County contracts with. They have experience writing these grants, being awarded these grants, and they have staff from NDT, and they quoted us the $15,000. And remind me your question. What did you ask me?
Oh, when do you need the money by?
When do we need the money back?
Yeah.
So DJNA, you guys, it's been a week.
Hey, you operated, you're good, we're all good.
Yeah, and at least, I remember what I asked.
So,
It's really good.
so in conversations with DJNA, they are willing to push the date of the invoice for the balance due out to May. So they're willing to give us an additional 90 days from the time that the grant is due to be able to come up with the funding. So even though the grant is due, the grant application is due in February, we'll have until May to pay for it.
So I guess,
They'll write the grant and then we'll pay later.
Exactly,
That's what
yep,
you're
exactly, yep.
So-
exactly.
my question to you, Emily, if we approach Steve at DNRC, and you said in March, those are, the cycle is,
Yeah,
would he have the money that soon? Would we actually be awarded the money?
in
that
March,
soon? No, by May.
I would say yes. They're usually a pretty quick turnaround, and if I'm working with Steve, then that's
Mhm.
something that would probably be doable. And I think that timeline kind of works because that gives us an opportunity to talk with him and see if it's even an eligible use, and then maybe, look at other funding opportunities for that.
I was trying to think if I had, I think that was the basic question I had, is when do you need the money?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that's really helpful that they were able to do that. Oh, I know, PJ&A, is that the same people that did the trestle study?
It might be, they sound familiar
It
to
does.
me.
I know it was
think they're pretty
initials
big
too. It was like
in
3
engineering
initials.
studies,
Yeah. So it may be the same,
They had mentioned that they worked with Mineral County before, but I wasn't sure what.
maybe with Brooke on the
Yeah.
trestle.
That
Yeah,
could have been, yeah.
I think so, which is really nice. I mean, it's just convenient. They already know our area. so,
Exactly,
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And that's
okay.
another reason that we went with them. The engineers that we work with will still participate in the process and will still coordinate with them, but I think that they would be the primary contact for mineral. So, assuming that we moved forward and we wrote the grant application, and assuming that the grant was awarded, then DJ&A would work directly with Mineral County to develop the planning document.
And I am that contact person for our group.
Correct.
I think that Brooke nominated me.
Perfect.
Wasn't that what happened, Jim?
Well, yeah, I think we all nominated you to be like the one person with this.
That would be
co-applicant
attending the
thing.
meetings and stuff,
Right.
yeah. So, I guess the other question
Well, I had
Is
one,
D-
oh, go ahead.
DJ and A, are they the ones that helped write the grant, or wrote the grant for the, RAISE grant that Missoula County just recently got last year?
I believe so.
Okay,
Yep, exactly.
okay. And the other thing about a planning grant, from what I understand, and Amanda can add more, is what if we do get this planning grant, it really sets us up in the future for additional RAISE grants. So,
Exactly. So if you want, so this is just gonna help plan what it might look like, but it's the first step in doing any kind of construction and receiving construction funding. So, you know, provided we get this, provided that we're funded and we have a planning grant, that's what will enable you to get construction funding. And so really, you can use this as a way to just plan out your transportation and trail priorities. It's a way to pay for that. And
with a lot of help.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep, exactly. And so, yeah, and once you have that planning, then we can look at construction. We can do that collectively if this group continues to, if this coordination continues to be successful, we can do that collectively, or you can just hold on to that and address it how you want. If ultimately Mineral County decides, well, we don't want to do any construction for the next 10 years, then you still have that document that you can come back to that you won't have to pay for. So whenever funding does become available or your priorities align, you'll have that there to be able to say, okay, let's work on this piece, but yes.
So in other words, as a co-applicant, we will have the documents also that we can use however we want.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Those documents, not only just for a future RAISE grant for construction, but for any grant. That would be, the minimum you'd need is a planning document before they even say hello to you. So
And I
it's how you
also-
get documented in of itself.
I also asked Heather Berman from the Forest Service, you guys know her. She attended our last meeting with Amanda too, and I said, do you think this is good for our county? And she said, definitely. So getting her, I mean, she's our Forest Service grant person, so
Well-
getting her,
I could see that the Forest Service would use the document as well, for any of their trail stewardship grants or anything like that, that they're submitting through FWP or even through, the federal, that's gonna be a,
Would they
Important
contribute then to that cost?
I don't think that they could contribute to that.
oh no, we already
But
checked.
it's just
Okay,
a,
Because if
it's,
they're going to use what we pay for, I wanna know,
Yeah.
is there a contribution?
Well, I
am
actually,
curious in pursuing that actually. I wonder if there's not, and their answer may still be no, but if we look at what just the cost to go through the Forest Service land would be, if they might be willing to still contribute a portion just for that.
and I don't think very much of it's Forest Service land, but, I did talk to her,
Heather.
thank you. God, I was gonna
It's going around the
combine it
table,
into
we're
Herman's.
just passing it around.
So, yeah, I did talk to Heather and she checked to see if the Forest Service could contribute to a grant that doesn't apply to actual Forest Service lands, but to adjacent lands, and they said no.
How would they then be using our plans for what?
well, because once you have that plan, it encompasses that whole spot. It's not gonna just say, oh, well, we're not looking at the Forest Service land, because in chunks, you do have to go through the Forest Service land for the trail.
And
So,
we'll be looking at that.
So they look at the overall benefit to Mineral County when they're doing any of these grants. When we applied for that FWP grant for the bathrooms, it's on St. Regis Park, which is on Forest Service land. However, we applied on behalf of Mineral County for that funding. And so, all of it kind of coincides, and they're really about cross-boundary right now. So if you can get a project that's encompassing all of that, and you say, okay, well, this organization is working on this part of the trail, and we want to come in and help on this part of the trail, that's where it really.
And the
Probably
Forest
one of the
Service, oh, go ahead.
probably be the only way that you're ever gonna cure the trestle problem.
Yeah,
It might
it's,
Because without that trestle being healed up, we got nothing.
and I was actually curious, Denley, right before you go, because it's a question for you. Do you know if RAC funds could help
That's what
fund
I was gonna
this?
say rack funds, and the other thing I think in the planning, if you get like some parking areas that are close to the Forest Service, if the plan fits, they might wanna use those parking areas, they wanna spur up, maybe wanna spur off on a trail, but, rack funds have to benefit Forest Service, it doesn't have to be on Forest Service, so there is. a
But we are
possibility.
not gonna, I just got my letter yesterday.
I was gonna say they might not meet by then.
They won't be meeting. So I am accepted, I still have to be nominated.
Right, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, we won't be
once the
meeting before
plan is
then.
in place, that-
Yeah,
some stuff
yeah.
That can be done, but the rack funds, yes, if it
Eventually.
benefits Forest Service property but there are things that can't be spent on Forest Service.
And the good thing is, we haven't met, or RAC has, I'm not part of it yet, but I've been to some of their meetings, but they haven't met for 3 years, this will be the 3rd year, and we get all the money from the back money. So we do get
Yeah,
that,
but
which is
doesn't
like
mean-
60,000 last
That
year.
doesn't mean we don't spend it efficiently. But that's part of the problem when there's too much money.
We don't spend
and
it
all the
efficiently.
frill goes-
Oh, well, there's not gonna be a whole lot, I think 60,000 was last year's, so, yeah, I mean, there might be 180,000, which would be great.
But I think one of the things you have to stipulate too is if there's gonna be a planning process, and if it goes in, to make sure it's a Mineral County plan and not Missoula County. plan.
Exactly.
We will,
Well, and
yeah.
that's been my concern
That's what's
too.
important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's been my concern too. Is that,
Because you're on
you know-
the other end of it.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Or they just
yeah.
gonna piggyback on this, and so that's a really good point. And the way that I think that we'll structure this is that in the writing of the grant application, that the engineering firm or the grant writer would work specifically with each county. So they would come into Powell County, and I would say, hey, this is what I want. I want you to plan this area. This is my priority area. I want a bridge put in here. How much will it cost to do that, to develop a plan for that? That will be my portion of the ask. And then the sum of each county's portion will be the total grant amount that we ask for. So if awarded, if Mineral County asks for $100,000 in engineering for the trestle bridge, then you would be awarded $100,000 for that planning. So I think that even though it's a collective effort, that will still specifically be individually represented.
And we'll fight for it, right, Amanda?
Oh, yes, we will.
Yeah.
Yes, we will.
Yeah, I think they've met their
But
match.
yeah, and I don't get the impression that there's,
I don't
you
think
know,
so either.
that's what would happen, but.
But especially Mineral County gets inundated with such a small population. We get overrun.
Well-
Other counties get their priorities and.
So
That's been a chronic problem for us too.
And Denley, I think from what I understand with meeting with Amanda and Jackson, each county is going to spotlight a project in the grant, right? And that we've identified the Saltese Trestle as our spotlight. Of course, the engineering's already been done on that. It'll need to be updated probably because it'll be outdated, but,
It
so,
shouldn't
yeah.
be. The bridge is in disrepair.
No, the cost.
The cost will.
Yes,
but
the
as far as
cost.
the
Just
plan
double
is still
everything.
No, no.
Everything.
Can I just jump in a couple
Sure.
things? One is, it's certainly been implied, but I'm not sure explicitly stated. It may have occurred to you, well, how come our little Mineral County Rails to Trails group isn't being an applicant on this? But it has to be a municipality.
Correct.
Yeah, that's, the
Government,
grant
local
says it has to be a government or a municipality. So that's why we're here, for that purpose. The other is looking at the bigger picture of our little group, and as we're trying to understand the whole process of designing and building trail segments, having the partnership of Powell County and Missoula County has already been really useful to us to know some of these contacts for some of these engineering firms and planning firms. And
We're
so,
learning a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're fostering some really great relationships that I think brings an intangible benefit to the group.
Thanks, Jim. That's, yeah, a really good point.
I, Dwayne, need you to explain to me, because I have concerns, I know. But I would like to hear from you. I know that 500 doesn't sound like a lot of money and 2,500 doesn't sound like a lot of money. But is it a lot of money for this? For something that, not knowing where our county is headed right now? Is that a consideration?
Well, I think it's always a consideration, but I think finding out from Steve Kimball whether we can use that money, that may very well cover it.
Yeah,
If we
and
can
then
use
I
that,
feel, yes,
that's something that sometimes we have trouble using that money up.
Yeah,
And,
so how
We
would we
haven't.
make a decision today about supporting this? Because
I don't think Amanda's asking for a
Okay,
decision, that was
to
my
support
my
this.
fault.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, no fault, you
I
did say
would
it's
say-
just a discussion, so.
It is a discussion. I would like to have some, at least verbal confirmation that you're interested in pursuing this. I do want to have a cross-county agreement. I want to have a cooperative agreement in place no later than January 6th, only because we're on such a tight deadline here. And so I'm not asking you to commit funding today, but by January 6th, we do need to know if, if Mineral is willing to participate, and to have at least a sense if you would like to move forward would be extremely helpful for us to understand how to work, to continue to structure the project and the budget.
And again, we're not asking money from the county.
do you have
Right,
that
I just saw the,
agreement?
the responsibility of between
Yeah,
5
I
and
have
25,
the
yep.
outline of
Yep.
that would be great.
And if,
Emily, do you think by January 6th, we could answer that?
Yeah, I mean, she's got an outline of what the cooperative looks like. I can call Steve today and kind of push that around. But I just wanna add, 500, even 2,500 for this kind of a plan. If you were to break it down and do it by each county, it's gonna cost each county at least that.
yes,
We're looking at updating the CWPP, which is just a small document for just Mineral County. And, those estimates came in from around $40,000.
Yeah.
And so you figure, then if you're matching that, usually a 25% match, that's
no, and I know that
$10,000, so,
2,500 doesn't sound like a lot of money, it sounds minimal, but I
Yeah.
still want to check on that because it sounds minimal, but we don't know what we're up against.
Yeah,
So
I think,
We're in the same position, and it's a challenge because it's outside of the budget season.
yeah,
And so that's the argument that I'm making with this funding source is, look, we're small counties, it's outside of our budget season, so we're all really trying to pinch, and it's in the middle of the budget season too, so it's kind of have a hard, it's kind of hard to look at that outlook of what's July gonna look like.
so do you guys have a collaborative, a local forest collaborative, or resource collaborative that, applies for DNRC funding? Or, like any kind of group that works with the Forest Service that would be eligible for that funding?
We have a county parks board, and then we typically just apply directly to DNRC, either through, I would be the one to apply, or, we will sometimes pay engineering consultants.
So are you aware of that local government assistance grant?
No, and I am definitely.
Okay, I
Yeah.
can share some information
Yeah.
with you because it's up to
Awesome.
$10,000 and it really sounds like it would fit because the purpose of it is to help get work done,
That would be great, especially for granite, because I know that that's gonna be their big question too, is,
Yeah, don't worry about
Okay,
this.
yeah, I'll share that stuff with you.
no.
But yeah, I think that, by January 6th, if you guys, that way you could throw the idea around with Roman as well.
Yeah,
And, she can send all the documentation or whatever to us if, Wally needs to look it over or anything like that, that can all be done. I think January 6th is reasonable.
Okay, so I do have that written down. On Monday, Tuesday, the 3rd, to check with you to see if Steve Kimball, if you were able to pull everything together. And then do we want to put that on the agenda for the 6th so that we're revisiting?
Well, I think
Denley?
you'd have to make a motion, wouldn't you, then it'd have to be an official.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah,
do we
that's
want to
an
make
item.
that? But Denley had a question.
I'm just curious if you approached like the St. Regis Resort Board, Resort District, and trying to get, does that helps promote, if you tried the county chamber, and just get some donations rather, some.
The resort district was another thought.
Yeah,
I
because
don't know
they-
if they can, because it's out of the area, but I was gonna check with George and see if it was
Well,
something they could
if
do
it's
since
county
it's.
if it was
Ties into the sidewalks.
eventually that's gonna all tie
Yeah.
together.
That's true.
So I mean, that way, you're
Well,
looking at
actually-
some other stuff besides just relying on the county, you're getting some
Yes.
input
Yeah,
from
no,
the
yeah.
businesses as well, and that's,
The
I
only-
hate to see, the government has to bail everybody out,
Yeah.
Yep.
The
I
only
like
thing
that.
is, we're not gonna guarantee the trail comes through St. Regis. I mean, there's another route that we wanna check out that would, I mean, we'll still have the trailhead at the Forest Service compound.
Right,
But we're hoping that we can cut off and go, you know, across through that private land.
yeah. Which, you know, I mean,
Which the planning
From-
grant would work with that, I think.
yeah, and from the Forest Service standpoint and MCRC, I think we're looking at connecting the sidewalks out to that location anyway.
Mhm.
You know, because it is highly used even as is right now. And so,
Which location is
to go from where the route of the Olympian Trailhead is out to,
The little Joe.
the Little Joe, right there, yeah.
Mhm.
You know, that was a
No
kind of
matter
our
what,
talk is
yeah,
after,
yeah.
after we get it extended to there, you know, the resort district is kind of worked up to there, and then the
Right.
Forest Service will go out to a certain area, and then once we get
And
the ability
actually,
to go that rest of the way to connect it.
that would be a part of the, I mean, it would, that connection part would be a part of the Great American Rail Trail.
Yeah.
Because it would connect to that trailhead.
Yeah, so
Even
I
though
mean,
it'd be
even,
an
And I think,
Off
you know,
ramp.
like I say, for the resort board, I think that fits right in because it pulls people to the community.
Emily had talked
Even if
about
it's
that,
not
yeah,
used right now.
yeah.
And I would, like I say, I think it's worth pursuing
Yep.
dollars there.
Emily had talked about
Yeah,
it.
good
So,
idea.
Yep. Emily's on it. We're so lucky to have her.
thank you, Diane.
So Diane, if you would contact Renee to get on the schedule, I just wrote it down that we want to have this stuff done by 6. And so, yep,
And that would be an action item on the 6th.
And you
Okay.
said you were wanting to follow up with me by the 3rd?
I have it down on the 3rd that I would follow up with you.
I'll
Or not that I
probably
will,
reach
but
out before then.
somebody
for
will.
you.
Okay, just so
So
we don't let it
Amanda
slip through
wouldn't
the
need to
cracks.
be here necessarily, would she?
No, I don't
Okay.
think so, do you?
Probably not.
Emily and I.
Unless you wanna make another lovely drive.
Yeah.
I would love to, I'm not sure I can work it into my schedule.
You only wanted
I'm
it
spread a
2 days
little
ago.
thin.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
and she
lucky.
lucked out because it's supposed to start snowing
Yeah, I
tomorrow
wanted
and
to
not
ask,
stop.
Yeah, no,
Ever.
it was actually really nice this morning,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
So good. Anything else, Amanda?
No, do you guys have any questions for me?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Okay.
Okay, so I just want to say, it's a great benefit to our group to be working with, both Amanda and Jackson. Like I said, we're learning lots, and I think it's adding credibility to what we're doing. And of course, we work with Kevin all the time, I've worked with him for a long, long time. But I also want to, talk a little bit about our Rails to Trails group, if that's okay. I mean, it's not on the agenda, but it's related. It's good news. I just want to share good news with you guys. So actually, a couple of things. I do have the map that we used yesterday with the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and I wanted to show you this, Amanda, before you leave. With the Tarkio piece on it, that we will be having our trails through. And that's through the DNRC land that's south of the freeway between Crystal Springs and Tarkio. So it avoids that last really narrow bridge, so it's a safety issue too. But we've been working with Amy and Helena, and we've got everything in for that, and we should be hearing from her soon. And then we will write a grant for that. So that's the good news. Another good news is we've got donations of $750, plus a little, I don't know how much Jim's gonna.
850.
850, okay, total, from people who are donating in honor of my father to our group. And then I had a phone call.
Thank you, Emily. Are you leaving us?
Be right back, and
Oh, okay.
She'll be back.
Thank you anyway.
So, the last thing is, I had a call from Doug Austin yesterday, and I need to call him back this afternoon, and apparently there's some grant money for that project. So, that he's found. So, not only will I be running the trails over existing trails right now, with our grant money, to connect the one side to the east side to the west side, but we'll also run a trail down to the Austin piece, which is the old railroad along the river. Beautiful. Doug and Dana's intention was when they bought that land to turn it over for public use. So they're gonna be giving our group a right of way through that. And then we're also working on the other end to put a trail up through there, and we also have that in our written out in our land use permit or license, and Amy's already looked at it. So that would take actual construction of a new trail. So that's what, I believe that Doug and Dana's grant money will go towards. So, yeah, so it's just all good news about our group. I'm so excited because we're new and we don't know what we're doing.
That is really
It's
exciting.
going.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
guys are really lucky to have a group with such initiative. I mean, we have a county parks board, but they're really just place supportable. So I think that what you do is very proactive, and I think you made great progress just in the short time that I've been working with you.
Yeah,
So
we've been really lucky.
Yeah.
I think, and Doug Austin is an attorney, a local attorney,
Okay.
and he's not a board member, but he might as well be, you
Well,
know.
that's it though, just finding those opportunities and then asking for them. That's all it takes. And so that's, you know.
Well, he's the
that's-
one that started
that's
the
what we're
whole
doing
thing
too,
with his
yeah.
piece of property. So eventually we'll have a loop that goes down off the Great American Rail Trail. It'll be like a scenic loop that comes
That
down
is
and back
awesome.
around, yeah.
That is awesome. Good, you guys are making good progress too.
Yep.
You taking a break for Christmas or?
I have to.
So do I.
Daughter said I had to, I'd rather stay home, I think. So anyway, I just wanted to show you this before you leave.
Yeah.
This is the piece right here where it says Tarkio. I don't want to write on my map, I want to keep it clean. And Jim can kind of show you.
Yeah, so
Where?
it would be between
We done with our
Christmas
meeting then,
Springs, which
Diane?
isn't really marked on here.
Oh, yeah, I
All
think
these
we are,
little
unless
spring
anybody
things.
has any questions,
But yeah,
anybody in the
it's-
audience?
I did. Yeah,
You're gonna send me that.
I have a question. With this trail that they're talking, is it gonna affect any of the trails that people use for ATV and recreational vehicles and prevent people from using them?
Okay,
No,
I'm glad, no,
This.
I do want to clarify,
Yeah.
the piece of, the Saltese Trestle will always be multi-use. That's a given, and we've already told the people in Washington that, so they know that. And then the route of the Olympian, right, from
Right, by Georgia
Saltese
and
down
all
to
that, yeah.
St. Regis, that will remain multi-use as well. Some of the trails, like the one through the DNRC piece that we're working on, which is like 2.5 miles, will not be multi-use. And that, the DNRC says no motorized vehicles.
Okay, and those will
Is
be
it
new
currently
trails.
It's a
that
new
will be-
trail anyway.
It's a
It's
new
not
trail.
Oh, okay.
No, no,
Okay.
and it's not, it's, yeah.
Okay, that's what I was
No,
curious.
No, no.
Changes any
That
current
overview
trails.
Trail at Olympia was made about 10, 15 years ago.
Well, and the other thing we've clarified with Kevin Ball, I think his new name is, he's the overall project manager for the whole trail that goes from Washington DC to Washington Coast, okay? We've been meeting with him for a long, long time, but, he realizes that in rural areas, things are different from like in Washington, their trails are non-motorized only. But when you come out to rural areas, it's a whole different story. So he's keyed into that. But thanks for asking. That's a great question. Did that answer your question before?
Yes, it does, thank you.
Mr. Grinch,
I think he deserves a seat at the table.
I think he deserves to come up and, oh, she's got him. She's got him.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
So any other questions? Did that?
No, that answered my question,
Yes,
thank you very much.
definitely.
I think that would be a main concern of a lot of people.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So what I wanted to say is that one of the really great things about this opportunity is that we can tie in ATV development. We can tie in other transportation initiatives. So if, this is about alternative routes. And so if we want to work in these routes for the, smaller motorized, snowmobiles and ATVs, that can be part of this planning process.
I
So
didn't know that, so that's good to
definitely.
know.
Yeah, definitely.
Because Brooke Lincoln, who, have you met her yet on Zoom?
Just on Zoom. Yeah.
She's one of our board members, but she's up in the West End and she has a snowmobile club up there. And they have groomed trails and all that, so
Yeah, not
that's
only
great.
not only the snowmobiles, the four-wheelers should also be.
Right, right.
Exactly.
So if you guys, do you have an organized group now? I
No,
mean, it is organized, but it's not organized.
no,
right?
we don't, no, we're not part of any group,
Oh,
actually.
you're not part of it,
No.
okay.
No, we just want to make sure that public is aware, because truthfully, we don't snowmobile, either of us, but we do
No,
ATV. And then we just want to make sure that those
Right.
that are up on the West End, which the night riders are up there, but there's a lot of people that come just to use those trails that have no clue about what we have. They just know that there's a stop in Hagen and a stop in
Right.
Saltese, and we're gonna run everything in
Well,
between.
the reason I ask that is I'm the Recreation Committee Chair for the Mineral County Resource Coalition, and we've tried to get the four-wheeler club people involved, that's why I was asking.
I can give you
From
the
the West
contacts
End.
for that.
There is an ATV club.
Yes,
There is
we
an
know,
ATV
we know,
club.
we know.
They're getting ready for their Christmas meeting, matter of fact, this weekend. I can put you in touch
And I
with
think
the,
Brooke knows that, Brooke Lincoln.
that's the Night Riders, which is the
We know,
snowmobile
yeah.
club.
Is
Yeah.
that
So
Dory Cook?
Is it Dory?
it is,
Yeah.
it is.
She
Comes
used
to
to
our
come, she hasn't come recently.
Maybe she just needs a
A
heads up.
nudge, a nudge.
A heads
yes.
up. We're talking about stuff that can help us all.
So are you gonna go to that meeting?
No,
Oh, okay.
no, we don't.
Well, I'll talk to Dory, I've got her contact information and just try to get her re-involved, but, yeah. So, no, we know that that's a really important component. And yesterday, when we talked about the, Fish Creek, we talked a lot, I mean, that's what it was, did you come?
No.
Yeah, that would have been a good meeting, because that's what the whole topic was
Let me know when these
OHV.
meetings are, and I'll come and I'll either record or at least be there. But yeah, these meetings are, I think, a lot of people, especially out on my end, don't get these notices. They don't know where to find these notices.
Well, the Mineral
and-
County Resource Coalition meets the first Tuesday of every month at 10 o'clock in this room. So,
And how would they know that, Diane?
I'm telling them right now.
Okay, but previous to this,
I know, but if I don't catch it,
Do you
next
have
time you
email?
have, next time you
Do you
have a
have
meeting.
email?
I do. I try not to use that a heck of a lot. Is there,
About 100.
Dawn?
oh, I'm sorry, Emily was just telling me that she has an email list that she sends this out to of 100 people.
So you can get on that
Is
list.
it with, I noticed that you recently, Renee did put the LEPC meeting in because it was on and held in this
And it is on the
room.
agenda as
Well,
well.
And-
because,
Yeah.
yeah,
And would this be another meeting that could be added to your agenda that, you see what
It
I'm
is,
saying?
it is.
The
Because
calendar,
it's not on there because it's in this room. It's on there because as a commissioner, we always have a commissioner in there.
Okay, there's the
When you use the
clarification.
room, that does not need to be
No.
on the agenda.
Okay, but that's a clarification. So you don't attend this particular meeting that,
No, I
the
am
Resource
not.
Council?
Wayne does.
I do,
Okay,
Yeah,
Yep.
it's always on the agenda.
okay.
In
It's,
fact,
Yeah,
and just,
Calendar.
just a little history there, ma'am, for your information. When the Route of the Olympian was first established, the Mineral County Commissioners were very insistent with the Forest Service that be both.
that's what Dudley just
Yeah.
said, yeah.
I'm just
It was a,
repeating-
it was a
just repeating.
multi-use
That was
from the day
Mineral
one.
And
County-
that's
that
not
was
gonna
the Mineral
change.
County
Yeah.
Commissioners.
Of course, you know, we don't get out to Fish Creek quite as often, but we do, you know, have concerns about any of that being tapered off too, so. Just information, I'm here for information for other people, not necessarily to actively participate in resource councils, so.
Just making that clear.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, so, yeah, we use email a lot, and then,
And
do
those
you?
meetings are available by Zoom as
Yes.
well.
Excellent,
Yes.
I'll get on your email list.
Yes.
Sounds like you're the one that I need to get on.
So
your
are you
email
on the
list.
county agenda list too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am. But,
All right,
yeah.
well, I'm gonna adjourn that meeting then, Diane. That meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for.
Take a little break if you need one.
nice meeting you, safe travels home.
Thank you.
Give you that in
All
case
right,
you have
thank you.
questions. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, it's 10 o'clock. Our next item on the agenda is to approve the annexation to the Superior Rural Fire District. Thanks, Jim.
Jim, right away.
Right here.
You love these.
I know. Hello, Steve.
Hello.
Yeah, and if I didn't remind everyone, if you're a visitor, please sign in on the board there, please.
You're doing your chair job. Which one's chair? Well, the chair.
Yeah. Unless she wants to be.
Who pounds the gavel? I did get to pound it once
Yeah,
last week.
Who pounds the gavel? That's a good sign, isn't it?
It is.
Thank you. Did you sign it, Grinch?
I brought maps in case we need them.
All right.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, we've got an advertised public hearing for the adoption of an annexation out in the Tarkio area. In March, you completed the annexation to the Superior Rural District, 5,126 acres. So it was a large block of property that we brought into the rural district. That excluded Alta Boisa's properties, which were 241 acres. And it was because Alta, early on in the process, said, I don't want to be included. I want to think about this. So as we moved forward to honor her request, we left her out. And she came to the public hearing and also echoed the fact that she wanted to be left out. So after thinking that through for a while, and with the success of the rural district annexation in place, we had recently a petition to annex in to the district. And from the rural board's point of view, that's a good thing, because that kind of completes at the end of the line what we set out to accomplish. And so we get where we wanted to be, albeit some 10 months later. We've got a signed petition by her. It's at the clerk's office. And the resolution approving that annexation of 241 acres is in front of you for a public hearing and action today. The rural board recommends you approve it, and approved it and submitted it to you for your consideration. We did get it appropriately advertised in the Independent, and it's to a point now where you can approve it. And I think at the end of the day, we've got a project in front of us that's really moving forward. I don't know if Alta made it to.
Steve, I have a question for you. Do you mark your resolutions the same way we do? Like, would this be resolution 12,
Yes.
16?
They're your resolutions, so
Oh,
they
it is,
follow
okay.
your numbering system. So as a quick update before we get into the public hearing, I'll bring you up to speed on what's been accomplished since March, when you last had this before you. We've been real successful with DNRC. We've actually been given title to an easement that allows us to have the use of the property. We've been out there and mowed it so we can stake it and decide where our building's going to go. We've got all of our equipment assembled. We've got a temporary station up and operating out there now. In that station, we've got an almost new structure engine that we own that was donated to us. We have a brand new wildland unit that was donated to us as well, a Type 6 wildland unit, $150,000 engine.
Wow.
We've got a tender that was recently given to us, donated to us, along with a check so we could put safety equipment on it. We've got a radio installed. We've got radios via grant. We've got equipment. We've got racks. We've got heaters. We've got a functioning fire station out there, albeit it's on private property. And so we're anxious to get the permanent station built so that we can get that equipment moved into a permanent station, and then we'll be in the long-term fire protection business out there. So DNRC gave us an easement to the property. We've got to have our station built within 5 years, or occupying it in the form of a station within 5 years. So we'll either get a permanent station built or we'll put a temporary building out there. But one of the two will have to occur within 5 years, or it goes back to DNRC. So we've been trying to pick off the challenges of what comes first, and we've been writing grants left and right. We've been, now we've got to get our work underway of design and engineering for the building. We've got to drop electricity. We've actually got a preliminary approval on a grant to do our electrical service and underground electric out there from Blackfoot Communications. So we're making progress. There's a new gravel operator out on the Hankinson's property, and when you talk to them, their statement is they're going to move 200,000 tons of that mountain to Missoula. And if you can run the calcs on that, that is a lot of earth material that's going to get moved out of there. So we've approached them and encouraged them to be good neighbors and said, you need to move some of this gravel over onto our building site. You need to excavate our water tank underground water tank holes. You need to help us build our approaches and windrow some extra gravel for us there to be good neighbors because of the impact you're having on the community. You know, if you remember Peggy's concern about a yard light impacting the serenity of the Tarkio area, imagine what 100 trucks a day are going to do to that neighborhood. And so, you know, we've been out there actively talking to them. We get invited in because of the fire department role, but also we've been talking to them about making an effort to be a good neighbor and helping with the construction of our fire station. And I think we've made real inroads there. Hopefully that could save us quite a chunk of money by having heavy equipment and a pile, excuse the term, but a pile of gravel on our station site. All that said, we're pretty optimistic that, you know, this is going to happen. We're going to make this work and live up to the commitment we made when we established the rural district. The relationship between us and Tarkio, the relationship between us and Frenchtown has gotten quite good. Now we're a butt to the Tarkio, I keep calling it the Tarkio district, that's our district, the Frenchtown district. You know, we had joined at mile marker 63.5, and we've worked out all of our response issues, and it's working perfectly. We had a call just a couple of nights ago out of mile marker 62 for 4 elk that were killed by one Honda Civic. Yeah, it was an ugly accident, but you know, the system's functioning well. The lines, the geographic lines of demarcation are now set with Frenchtown and Superior, so that part has gotten much better. All that said, the rural district sees this 241 acre annexation as completing the final piece in the Tarkio area. We'll have all the private property in the rural district once we're done with that. We've made great inroads with ISO. If you're familiar with the insurance rating agencies, ISO, we've got a 5 rating and a 5X rating, which is really good, by the way, for the town of Superior and for our rural district. St. Regis is an 8. So the people that are in the Tarkio area should greatly benefit from having this station and the impact it'll have on their homeowners insurance and their fire insurance. It's a tortured path to get that in place because maps have to be done by Matt, your mapper, and they have to get in the hands of ISO, which has to get their system upgraded. So it's been chasing cats in order to get this finally in place. We're really close, and very soon, all of those homeowners out there in Tarkio, their insurance companies will be able to see the rating, which means they'll get a lower premium on their policy. So all that said, we recommend that you open your hearing and then you approve the annexation.
All right, I just want to say thank you, Steve. You've worked your tail off on this. It's been a long time coming.
You know, I was once told that, you know, in government, it's like steering a battleship. It doesn't turn quickly. Unrelenting steady pressure and you'll finally get where you need to be. And this is a perfect example of that. Just keep working at it, keep putting steady pressure on it, and you make it happen.
So one other question before we start that. I haven't been out there for a bit. Is that road dust coated or is it paved where it's a gravel pit?
No, well, it's paved 2/3 of the way up on Tarkio Loop. And then when Hankinson's property takes off, that's dirt. But they've got a water truck, a tender there, and they're watering the road. I'm not sure how much watering the road they're gonna be doing in this cold weather, but
Yeah.
they've got a water truck out there and their plan is to
When
water
the
there.
dust starts, they will be
Dust
watered.
abating, yeah.
Good.
And they have moved a lot of heavy equipment there. They've got a big dozer, and they've got 2 or 3 loaders and an excavator, and they're building a helipad at the top for evacuations, and that'll benefit the rural
Will it
district.
stay there? The helipad?
Well, it'll stay there until they remove a lot of dirt. They're gonna remove the entire mountain, so eventually it'll get moved. But, you know, for the time being, it increases the safety for everybody in the event they have to land.
Might be worth inquiring when they're done, if that could stay somewhere there.
Well, we could even put it at the fire station.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
that would be a logical place
Yeah.
for it. You know, we've got a couple of big
Be good
trees.
to have one there no matter either.
Yeah, I mean, it would be good for everybody. That would be a central rendezvous point for the whole Tarkio area.
Yeah. All right, so I guess I'll open the hearing for discussion on resolution 121622. Do we have any public comment?
Well, as a Tarkio property owner, I appreciate all the work you've done too, Mr. Bickler. And I'm here kind of to see what the change was. I heard it was Mount Alta, but I've heard a rumor that I came down for. Number one, all the firefighters were gonna have to move to Superior, the trucks were coming out of Superior. Yeah, but I'm glad to hear the fire station is going through, as the last hearing said, and all your work. And do you have your 6 firefighters out there?
Yeah, we have, a project like this has to start with a foundation. You have to get all the pieces put together at the bottom before you have the party.
Sure.
And so my firefighters want to have a big party and celebrate and get everybody in and start training. And I go, wait a minute, we don't have liability insurance, which was our huge hurdle. And so we've got a lot, getting the land from DNRC Denley was a big help with that. We've got to get all these pieces together, and then we can assemble our volunteers.
Sure.
We got to have the equipment that they can train on, and we just got the tender here recently. So it's been a long path, and we're making progress. Josh Pecora, there's a new chief. I retire January 1st. Scott Dodd's the new chief, but the rural district has agreed to hire Josh Pecora to be the station manager out there. So it'll be Josh's responsibility as the captain on that station to train the firefighters, to assemble his team, to make sure the equipment's ready to go. So that's another piece of the puzzle. To answer your question, no, the equipment's not going to leave. It's going to stay there. It's dedicated to that station. Its dedication to us was conditioned upon it forever staying there. So it'll stay there. Yes, we've got a list of volunteers that we're going to start training soon, but we've got to have the insurances in place
Sure.
before we play. The job of training and the job of a firefighter is dangerous. They're likely to have accidents, and we need to make sure we've got good insurance in place first. Our MMIA insurance turned us down. And MMIA said, we don't insure rural agencies. We insure towns. So we had to back up. We redid all the agreements. The town was generous enough to say, we'll put our name on that lease of that building. That way MMIA insured it. So we've now got the insurance in place. We've got the equipment. We've got a temporary station. We've got safety gear, radios, and all that stuff out there. So we're real close to having the volunteer group ready to go.
Okay, the guy that you mentioned, is it
Josh
Pest?
Pecora. Josh
Pecora,
Pecora.
okay.
Young man.
Yeah, I've met him and I'm very impressed with him. Is he still, where will he reside?
He lives right here in Superior.
Oh, because he did live out,
He lived at Tarkio.
Okay, so
He
that-
was really a logical choice when he lived in Tarkio. But my feeling in promoting Josh to station manager there was that he knows everybody in Tarkio. He knows the area very well. He's an officer already in the department. I didn't want to detract from Scott Dodd, the new chief's responsibilities, by having him have to worry about managing that whole growing effort of building the station and training. So Scott Dodd, the new chief, can concentrate on Superior, and Josh can concentrate on Tarkio. That help?
yes, that puts me at ease.
So I do have a question. Is that a paid position then?
It is,
Is it part-time, full-time?
part-time. Josh will be paid part-time, Scott will be paid part-time, and Calvin will be paid part-time. So
And Calvin's position is?
he's the assistant chief.
Thank you.
And Calvin's the guy who shows up on all the fires. He really takes charge, and Calvin's kind of the go-to guy for around here in town and on the freeways. And we all rely on Calvin to be in charge and on the scene early. And we're hoping that that becomes Josh's responsibility out in Tarkio. And ultimately, as this valley grows and as we get more population and there's more demand on the, we're up to 200 calls a year. As there's more demand on the fire department, this department's going to evolve into a paid department. But it's not there yet, and the resources aren't there yet, but, you know, we're preparing it to grow to that point by having the second station.
And when do we expect this to show up on our taxes? Next year?
Yeah, Department of Revenue is another one of those battleship stories where I went,
I worked
Jump-
with them for 32 years. I
So you know.
I wouldn't run for legislature because of them.
So I went into the Department of Revenue, Mr. Optimistic, in August after we did this, thinking, okay, it's the new tax year, let's go. And they go, well, we don't do anything with that until about February.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, come on, you know, they took action in March, and here we are in the new tax year.
And you don't want to call them on Fridays.
No. So I went over there on Friday and there was nobody there. I had to go back on Monday. But they move slowly, but they are thorough. And we got our new mapping from the Department of Revenue and they recognize it. They're about to update the mapping. Your mapping consultant does the mapping updates. So that's all moving forward. But it could take a full year before it's done.
I was dealing with my insurance agent and I said, well, this is just a heads up. We've just been approved to join Superior Rural Fire District. So you might want to get a head start. And he went on his computer and it was already in there, just waiting for final paperwork from you guys.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've been working with all the insurance agents out there in the last 6 months for not only the McClures, also the Bordens, the Lomans. Those group of property owners have all referred their agents to us, and we've got them all believing that, you know, this is for real, ahead of ISO's mapping. What needs to happen at the end game is ISO's map needs to be updated, and we're really close. I mean, I've got emails back and forth in the last couple of weeks, so I think we're pretty close to having that done.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Superior Fire. I read in the paper somewhere years ago that the closer you live to the fire hydrant, you could get a break on your taxes. And
Yep.
I did get one. There's only a house between me and the fire hydrant in town. But when I asked to see if I was still getting that break, no, it's just how many miles you are from the fire hydrant. Is that true?
It's 1,000 feet from a fire hydrant and 5 miles within a fire station. 1,000 feet within a fire hydrant gives you a 5 rating, and 5 miles of a fire station gives you a 5X rating. And that will greatly improve your insurance policy.
I better go back on that 1,000 feet.
Yep.
It's obviously dropped it.
Yeah, I can give you a letter that will help you.
Okay. Okay, well, this has answered a lot of my questions and straightened out some of the rumors I heard, so.
Alright, any other comments? Billy?
I'm liking all of this all coming together. I know Steve put a lot of work in there for the meetings he's had out at Tarkio and gotten all the landowners, and it's good to see the positive side and the idea of the insurance. I know people worry that they're gonna pay taxes, but if you get the insurance break and if your house doesn't burn down, I think they're gonna see the positive side. Getting back to the Department of Revenue, I was in their office with the director last week. So if you need a little extra boost on something, give me a holler.
They've actually done their job now. The job is really in the hands of ISO. Your county mapping consultant has done his job. It's taken a while, but those two pieces are done. Now it's just ISO taking the map that they've been given and updating their records. Day before yesterday, I got an email from ISO saying, oh, I'm sorry I haven't answered you. I had to have labor induced and I'll be out for a couple of months. And it's like, yeah, that just is typical of all we've been going through out there. So, you know, I'm convinced it'll get done. It's just.
And then I'll do a little talking to Knife River.
Yes, that could be a huge help, Dylan.
The fellow that asked you, runs it, started his construction work on the job that I was on back in 1984. We carried him through so he became successful, so he owes me one.
He does. Yeah, and what we need is gravel stockpiled out there. And if we could get that, then our next begging on bended knee would be for some of their heavy equipment to excavate our tank pit. I mentioned found a really good solution to tanks. We had been struggling with above-ground heated water tank for our water supply. Well, it turns out that I've discovered a company in Kalispell that does underground giant septic tanks that are designed for fire departments. And they have a large well pump in them, and they cascade them together. They plumb several tanks together to make your underground water storage. So you don't have to heat it. You don't have to put a heater in it. And it's out of sight, out of mind, and it's underground, and you can add onto it in components. As you need more, you just put another big tank in and plumb it in. So we've begun to pursue that. I think that's how we're gonna do our tanks.
Oh, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
It's been try, yeah. Doesn't freeze.
Doesn't freeze because it's underground. And then we can draft out of it if we have to. Just drop a hose, it's like a giant septic tank. And you can plumb them in, 10,000 gallon components. So as Tarkio grows, we can add another 10,000. Tarkio grows, we add another 10,000.
And it's not like an oil spill underground, if it's just water.
It's just water. Could help.
Denley and I are trying to, and maybe the fire department could help sign on, get that bridge in front of my house repaired. There's more rebar than there is cement. And the traffic from the Alberton Gorge in the summer, you could not believe. I'll bet you 100 trucks and trailers with boats go by up or down because they get out at Forest Grove. And it's in terrible shape.
It is.
And all I can get, well, there's better than most. Well, that's, I thought,
It's on the list, but the trouble is, it's too far down the list.
but I would think maybe with the fire department, maybe trying to use it.
That's right.
And,
Well, if you're done with your public hearing, your action would be.
Well, I was gonna read the resolution into the record. So I'll read resolution number 121622, annexation to the Superior Rural Fire District, parcels of land located in Mineral County. Whereas the Superior Rural Fire District desires to annex the following parcels of property into the existing Rural Fire District: 54242323 2010100, 54242322 and 54242322 excluding, however, the city limits of the incorporated town of Superior, Montana, Interstate 90 right-of-way to include its boundaries within Mineral County, Montana, Montana Rail Link and all of its right-of-ways in Mineral County, Montana, all areas covered by Alberton and Frenchtown Fire District, and all public power and communication lines and their right-of-ways in Mineral County, Montana. Whereas in support of that annexation petition has been received by the Clerk and Recorder's Office requesting to annex to Superior Rural Fire District. Whereas said petition for annexation to the Superior Rural Fire District as presented to the Clerk and Recorder's Office has been checked and verified and are filed in the petition file. And whereas a public hearing on this matter was held at 300 River Street, Mineral County Courthouse, Superior, Montana on December 16, 2022 before the Board of County Commissioners of Mineral County, Montana, legal publication and notice requirements having been met in accordance with MCA 733-2125. And whereas there were no written protests to the above described annexation, whereas petitions in support of the annexation total 100% of taxable value and acreage, and whereas the Superior Rural Fire District is in support of the annexation, and whereas the Mineral County Board of Commissioners did approve said annexation as requested, now therefore be it resolved that the above referenced parcel IDs be included within said Superior Rural Fire District and is to be assessed for said annexation a fire district levy along with other property already a part of said Superior Rural Fire District, dated this 16th day of December 2022. Do I have a motion to approve that resolution, 121622?
You do. I move that we approve resolution 121622, annexation to the Superior Rural Fire District, parcels of land located in Mineral County.
Great. Any other comments? All right. I would second that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay.
Wanna come work on the west end?
Tonight, we're having a party tonight at the fire hall.
I think we could.
So nobody wreck or burn their house down tonight.
Yeah, well, they'll have plenty of firefighters to go.
True that.
If that happens.
When you're having fun.
What do we do about definitely being careful?
Okay, thank you.
I wonder if you could.
That's good.
Wally, this requires Deb's signature. Can you sign for
Yep.
her? Okay.
I did. Is that your resolution? Is that right?
How you feeling, Wally? Say, how you feeling?
Much better.
I
Yeah, it was nice to finally get rid of the damn stuff. I was a kid.
quit drinking cheap whiskey.
That wasn't it. Boy, it was tough.
Oh, I
They
bet.
just, between you and me, they jerked me around for like 10 days with the antibiotics. I just could not get them to make a decision. It was like petrified.
Doctors are crazy.
Well, I think they're so afraid of COVID and RBD and all this other crap, you know, they're afraid to make decisions.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I was begging, give me sulfa drugs.
I can't take so.
Neither can my daughter either. She
Well,
deadly
you know, I
reaction.
say that because I remember when I was like first or second grade, they gave me some and I passed out. So
Oh,
they
really?
said, don't ever take sulfa again.
So you're allergic to
I
it?
just tell the doctor that I don't know if I am anymore or not.
Well, listen.
I was then.
My daughter had a reaction, but I didn't know what it was, so I said, take the last pill, you gotta finish the prescription. I'm getting, oh yeah, I'm getting ready
She
for
said,
a total illness
she said, thanks.
Oh yeah, that was an ER trip, she's like.
And she probably also said knock it even when you're 80.
Yeah.
He must have fallen asleep.
So for the fun of it, I can do it though.
Oh, funny.
If you're gonna do it, you just will have some fun with it.
Yep, yep.
I guess I better move away from the table, huh?
You can sit at the table. You
I like tables for my coffee.
can. Agreed. I should heat mine up when I'm.
And, did you see these?
Oh, yeah, you could pass those out. They were left over from a meeting and, yeah, they are,
So I can pass them around?
you could, yes, you could.
I'm gonna grab something first.
Wayne, did you want one?
No, I'm still got breakfast here in a sec.
So hurry and look out.
Did you want one, Dawn?
No, thank you.
And I have napkins, girl.
Which one I want though. Oh, is there messy?
What do you think?
Yeah, I had a hour long. Well, I was gonna call you, I visited with her about an hour last night. And the funeral's Monday.
All right, it's 10:30. Call this meeting to order.
I'll take one.
Item on our agenda is the writ of mandamus, progress, needs, and request to hire an experienced officer to assist the sheriff and county attorney, Lance Jasper.
Thanks for letting me be on the calendar. I need to step back a little bit just so you understand kind of where we're at. I don't know how close you've been following what is going on with regards to the county attorney's office and the sheriff's office, but we ended up filing a motion or writ of mandamus, and a writ of mandamus is a very rarely used document or mechanism in the court system could be utilized. And to be honest, 10 years ago, I'd probably, instead of filing a writ of mandamus, I would have just filed lawsuits on it. But instead of doing that, I filed a writ of mandamus, which is the least least expensive for the county on it, which would allow to identify problems and allow the county to fix problems that exist, hopefully to prevent the lawsuits from originating or even developing more. So the writ of mandamus is a document that essentially says that, for a lack of better words, is that in this case, the sheriff's office and the county attorney's office have failed to follow the law and their specific duties. And as a result of that, filing that, the court granted our writ of mandamus and ordered the sheriff's office and the county attorney office to essentially comply with the law, including hiring and Brady information and looking into issues regarding Brady officers. And as a result of that, I have sat down and have been working with both of the county attorneys on it. I have conducted a deposition, we've obtained discovery, and got a pretty good picture of the situation that the justice system in Mineral County is facing, and what I believe it needs immediately to address essentially problems that have been created and address an issue that's existed but essentially went unaddressed or unfixed. The first situation is this, is that in the county attorney's office, as a result of the Brady officers and the Brady material that wasn't turned over, you had 3 officers that were involved for a long period of time in criminal cases where Brady material wasn't turned over. Brady material is exculpatory evidence that is required by both the state constitution and the federal constitution to be turned over to a defendant before they go to trial or enter a plea. They need that information to make a decision on whether or not to go to trial. So the situation is with the county attorney right now, because that information hadn't been turned over, that all of the cases involving these Brady officers subjects all of the prior cases for the last full time that they've been working to be reviewed and given the defendants the opportunity to potentially withdraw their plea. So what that means is, and which has been done by a county attorney, is identify all of those cases and then providing the material back to them and potentially opening up a lot of cases. In the meantime, you have a jurisdiction here that is operating essentially with one full-time county attorney and a half-time and what I would call a civil attorney on it. The number of cases that this county attorney is trying to handle in volume is not consistent with the size of the county. This is a jurisdiction because of where we're located and the fact that we have so much traffic and now we have more people on it. The volume of cases that we have is more like a jurisdiction in Ravalli County on it. Simply put, you have now a situation where the county attorney has to deal with essentially 3 years of back cases on it and then has to try to keep up with the current case file. it's just not doable on it. Even if you have the best county attorney in the land, one person isn't. Speaking with several county attorneys across the area, western Montana, Ravalli County, Missoula, Lake County on it, for misdemeanors, the average caseload for one attorney is 500 cases. I think last time I checked, that Mineral County's misdemeanors are over right around 2,500. If that gives you an idea of how, and that's just misdemeanors. Then you get to felony cases on it, and here, because again, you have I-90, you're in what would be considered major drug corridor, gateway to everywhere in Montana, you get serious crimes on it. And there is just literally no way right now this county attorney's office can sustain itself with what's going on. And they're being asked to do a lot. In addition, you have a situation right now where one Brady officer is still working and creating cases. And that may not seem like a big deal, but in 90% of criminal cases, they are often resolved by a plea agreement, and it doesn't necessarily cause a great deal of work. However, when you have a situation where a Brady officer is involved, or the situation that the sheriff's office has right now where everything is being questioned, all issues are being briefed. I don't know if you had the chance, but writing and replying to briefs is very time consuming. It has to be done. If it isn't done, the court will grant the motion and the defendant will likely be released from the charges. And that is a major concern of mine. The reason that the writ of mandamus got filed was not because of solely because of the violations that were occurring to the defendants, but it was the number of calls I was getting from people that were victims, and they were afraid to come forward on it. And so that's how we got here. And so the thing that needs to be done for the county attorney immediately is that you need to get either a retired county attorney or a very experienced county attorney to come in, review these cases in the past, to take that off of Deb's back on it, to comply with the writs of mandamus, to do also a study to look at the volume of cases and determine the number of county attorneys necessary to fulfill the obligations of the justice system and complying with the defendant's rights to due process and the victim's rights on it. If you don't do that, the situation is only going to get worse. And when I say worse, it's bad already. It is really a emergency situation because of the threat of lawsuits that are out there, the situation with they're under a writ of mandamus, which means that the court has authority over them, and if they don't comply with it, they can be held in contempt, which could indicate into fines on it as well. In addition to it, is the potential of additional costs of complying with the writ of mandamus. Right now, we're taking depositions. That's going to be borne by the county on it. In addition to that, is you've got my office working on it right now, and if we don't get to a resolution soon, I'm going to be in the situation where I will be requesting attorney's fees for myself. And I haven't done that yet on myself. And I would rather see money spent to fix our justice system so that the people in Mineral County can be assured that it's a working organization. number one to the commissioners, overall is public safety. And, you know, I understand there's budget constraints, but public safety is the number one concern of this commission. It goes without saying, you are in no different situation than Lake County, where they have to put 70% of their budget into law enforcement and the justice system on it. But what you need to understand is by correcting this now, you are going to save millions of dollars down the road because of two things. One, it's going to eliminate the time it takes to get people through the justice system, and two is that you are not going to be facing near the number of lawsuits when you have a justice system that is following the law. And the other big thing that you need to understand is MACO does not provide coverage on 1983 actions. And that's what everything that you're looking at here. And I don't want to be put in the situation of 83 actions because number one is I can't file them. I'm a witness to it now. But there are attorneys out there that will jump on 1983 actions like crazy because they include an attorney's fee provision. And the average attorney fees on a 1983 case are going to run you about $500,000. And based on right now the number that I see out there that are viable cases, and when I say viable, it means 83 actions are difficult cases normally on it. There are a lot of hoops that you have to overcome, defenses that normally exist that insulate officers and counties from liability. And in this situation, because in a lot of cases, the sheriff's office and by effect, the county's office has ratified, condoned the hiring of these individuals, liability is an easy part to get to. And if you get past those hurdles, it is pretty straightforward door to it. Damage claims generally aren't that significant, but it only takes $1 to trigger the attorney's fees provision, because the reason 1983 was enacted was to encourage attorneys to file these actions to see that individuals' rights are not being violated on it. So right now, it is imperative with regards to the county attorney's office that an individual be hired to assist with the back cases on it, help that, but even more importantly, there is the Attorney General's office that will assist on some of the cases, and I understand right now they have taken 3. But on complex cases involving serious felonies, that individual could assist the county attorney as well. As it sits right now, another criminal defense, a prosecutor for misdemeanors needs to be hired, and I think that's part of the study. But right now is you need a full-time county attorney to assist with nothing more than complying with the writ of mandamus, looking at past cases, and assisting with current cases, because what's happening right now is you are just getting files stacked up on file and stacked up on file because the county attorney is dealing with something in the past and issues, and it's just going to get worse on it. In combination with public safety is officer safety. And unfortunately for Mineral County, the situation is that we end up with a lot of inexperienced officers and that haven't had significant training and need guidance there. In addition, when it comes to serious felony cases, we really don't have someone that is qualified right now to help in assisting that. Now, again, you can call in DCI and you can call in potentially other agencies to assist, but they're not going to help in training your deputies. And right now, the situation with regards to the sheriff's department is we've had an absentee sheriff. And what I mean by that is quite obvious, is he's just not been around. And as a result of that, you have these newer deputies that come in and are not getting the guidance and training and that they need to, one, understand how to be a police officer in the right way in which to do it, but more importantly, to recognize and how to investigate a case to preserve that evidence on it. And I'm looking forward, I believe, when we have a new sheriff coming in, but we have to, and these commissioners have to, help turn the corner to regain the public trust and also regain control of the situation there. Likewise, all of these cases in the past that are under the writ of mandamus have to be looked at by an investigator as well, because in a lot of the situations, you may or may not be able to still try that individual and convict them if it's able to eliminate the Brady deputy's testimony from it. So you need, that corresponds both with the sheriff's office and the county attorney's office. And what I see right now as the immediate need is that a very experienced detective, long-term, 20-year type of officer that has seen everything and also has been in the supervisory type of role to help instill and train the officers so that they, number one, conduct and see that the laws are followed when in fact they conduct a stop or that they are in the process of arresting it. But number two, and is equally as important, is I represent law enforcement officers across the state of Montana when they are involved in a critical incident. Either they've been shot at or they've had to use force. In those, excluding the ones that involve SWAT, I have seen situations that the only thing that saved the officer's life was their training on it. And it's simple and you think about it that, but if you don't use and you don't get training all the time, those skills diminish. And each of the officer-involved shootings that I can think of right off the top of my head started as something that didn't appear to be a violent situation, but turned violent. And when it did, it turned violent so quick that their training, it can't be something they have to think about. It has to be a reflex. It has to be ingrained in their brain to know what to look for and to recognize those situations. And given the randomness of I-90 and what the current status of Mineral County is, we have dodged bullets so far, but it is coming this way. It shows that violence is increasing on it, and frankly, the lack of respect for law enforcement has really increased. So the chances of going hands-on or getting into a violent situation are really, really high. And so the detective would serve two purposes. I see it as a half-time position with the sheriff, half-time position with the county attorney's office to assist in the preparation of serious criminal cases, in addition helping with the writ of mandamus, complying with it, and a position that would last 3 years. I think within 3 years that you will have a situation where the people that are a part of our law enforcement agency will be trained, understand what needs to be done on it, cases, understand what needs to be done to protect themselves, understand the obligations of what it takes to be a police officer, you know, with regards to honesty, trustworthy, and credibility, and it will help more quickly establish the relationship that law enforcement is currently lost with this county on it. No one in this county should be afraid to call 911 or to report a serious crime, and that just needs to change. The situation with the sheriff's office right now is, you know, you guys appointed Sheriff Todd. I understand at this point in time medically that he's unable to perform his duties on it, and I know I've talked with and deposed Wayne. I understand what they are trying to do to keep things going, and likewise they are under the same writ of mandamus. Right now, I think Wally told me that there are 25 subpoenas that are going to be issued that will go to the sheriff's office. And as it stands right now, you are down officers. That needs to change. With Ryan coming in, you need to approve so that they can get that spot filled on it. And the other thing is that ties into this that I want you to think long and hard about is that Mineral County now is approximately 87% of the cost of living of Missoula on it. And rents right now are averaging over $1,000 a month if you can find one on it. And the ability to maintain officers has always been a problem for Mineral County because of the pay on it. And what happens is we get a candidate, we put them through, we get them for a year before we send them to academy, and then they go to academy and then they start looking for a new position. When you look at what they're being paid versus a starting officer in Missoula, it's discouraging. And it's not that much additional money to go to, 85–90% of what a starting officer makes in Missoula. And the reason I bring that up is instead of looking at it as what it costs the county, the way you should look at it is what it brings the county by paying the extra amount to the officers. It is a lot, because if you bring an officer where they can make a living, and they should be able to make a living and support a family, they invest in the community. They either buy a home or they bring their family and kids here, which then creates additional monies for the schools and businesses. It creates its own economy. They buy their food at Darlow's, which hires people, other people. It creates more tax base for our county. And it instills confidence, more importantly, in the community when you know the deputies and their families, and they're not from, we don't have a sheriff from Billings. We have a sheriff from Mineral County. We have deputies that have their kids in school, those type of things. Right now, and we're in a fortunate position, is that many of the officers in cities, especially on the West Coast, are looking to continue their law enforcement career and are looking at areas of smaller jurisdictions like Mineral County and others where they are out of Portland, they're out of Seattle on it, but they also have to be able to make at least enough money to live and support their family. And right now, that's not occurring. And as a result of what we're offering, we don't get the applicants and quality of applicants that we should. And that needs to change on it. And again, like I said, is the money is there. It's just a question of where you put public safety, officer safety on your list. But by all accounts, it is the number one priority of this county on it. Secondly, is that by doing these things and restoring confidence in it, then it opens the opportunity to put in a public safety levy to help with the funding of it. But right now, that would not go over well because of the situation that's been created. And so we gotta turn that corner. And, I've offered my assistance and we are working with the county attorney, but right now, it is imperative that two things happen. One is that another county attorney is hired immediately, an experienced county attorney that can come in and deal with the past and help with some of the current and do a study based on the case numbers on what this county needs as a requirement to fulfill its obligations under the Constitution and under reasonable situations, because my belief is that given the sheer volume here, it requires at least one full-time county attorney to deal with misdemeanors, and you have your own county attorney, the actual county to deal with felonies, and then you need a floater between that assists both on felonies and misdemeanors. Gone are the days of having a single attorney office. It is too complex of a world out there. It isn't a situation where we have back in the day where there might have been 2 or 3 deputies out there. It just has to be addressed. And the first thing is, you need to do it immediately, because it's every day that goes by, you're just creating a bigger likelihood of major problems occurring. And so my first one is immediately put out and try to hire a full-time county attorney on it, and then request a study be done. And I think that there are a couple options there. There are former judges in Missoula that I think would come in potentially and look at and evaluate your situation. The first one is Judge Karen Townsend. She's still active in helping the Supreme Court and filling in where needed and addressing problems that exist. I don't think Judge McLean is still active. He's retired as well, but he's active still as a retired judge. There are several also retired county attorneys. Fred Van Valkenburg out of Missoula. There is out of Lincoln County, a recently retired county attorney that could be asked to do a study. And I don't think that is an intensive, like a very super expensive type of thing for the county, and it may even be able to be done by asking the Supreme Court to maybe order it. That's something I could look into and talk to the Chief Justice about on it. Or it might also be something under the writ of mandamus, the judge could ask as well to be completed. But part of getting out of the writ of mandamus right now is essentially the judge has control over what's going on in the county attorney's office and sheriff's office to a degree which allows them to order certain things be done to rectify the problem. To get out of that on it is going to require one, compliance on it, and two, our report to the court that this county has taken significant steps to rectify the problems that it has. I've spoken with the county attorney. I think Wally is here as well. I don't think I've said anything that he would disagree with the situation they're facing. And then also you're fortunate in that the individual that we're looking to hire for 3 years, an experienced law enforcement officer, many of the law enforcement officers work 20 years and then retire from the force they're at. There are many of those in Missoula. I've spoken to DCI. There are several DCI officers that could be interested in this because they see it as an important thing. The way law enforcement, they all wear the badge and they don't want to see it tarnished. And an opportunity to help a jurisdiction that's struggling is something a lot of officers want because it's an opportunity to improve the system. You're going to need, for funding of that, you're going to be looking at about $85,000 a year. That is less. Most of the experienced detectives across Montana are averaging around $100,000 a year on it, and to get someone of quality, you're going to be looking at a salary of about $85,000 in that area. So it's about a $250,000 commitment to it, but that commitment is going to save this county a ton on it. I do not want to be put in the position of having to be a witness in 1983 actions because of this writ of mandamus. I'd much rather be the person that helps take the county through this and restore it and help them do that than see just a bunch of expenditure and then instead of seeking a public safety levy, you'll have to do a judgment levy. And that doesn't make people happy, is when that means essentially you've been found liable and you have to go out and find a way to fund these judgments. And I know because I've been the attorney where counties have had to do that. And it's much better to be proactive. In addition to it, none of the stuff that you do that is to improve the system right now can ever be used against you. So it's an advantage that way on it. It's a way to prevent future lawsuits, but changes for the better don't get used against you down the road. Last, in the worst case scenario, and they are investigating, is the feds on it, because this has resulted in constitutional violations and civil rights violations. You don't want to get into a situation where the federal government comes in and mandates that you do things, and each one of you, I'd encourage you to call Fred Van Valkenburg and talk to him what it was like when the Department of Justice came into his office and installed it. It's not a question of being able to argue with them. It's a question of, yes, sir, and you end up in a situation where the amount of money that you pay and what is required is monitored it will create a real dire situation for you and result in real problem. So overall, those are two things. I think you need to act on it now, especially for the county attorney's situation on it. She is treading water right now, and water is going over her head. You know, frankly, you're fortunate that she stayed with the county as long as she has, because I don't know anybody that would stick with this. It just isn't worth the money on it because of things outside of her control. And so that should be advertised. If you guys approve this, I will talk with the county attorney and put out feelers for you to see who is potentially out there that can come in and understand the problem and address it. And you can likewise advertise it. Again, it may seem expensive right now, but it's nothing compared to what you're going to be in. And that needs to be helped right away, because without that, you can't get out of this writ of mandamus. It's very difficult because you have Wally trying to do it in amongst of other things on it that he does, and you have a county attorney that has to deal with the criminal docket right now. So no one is putting their full effort into doing that, and it's going to be eating up funds that can be better spent by having someone deal with it.
So I have a question, Lance. I understand a lot of what you're saying, and I agree. My concern as a taxpayer is, of course, how much is this gonna cost, which all of our concern is. But I'm just wondering if the county agreed to your suggestions or your, whatever they are, I don't want to say demands, but.
Well, they are.
Yeah, but does that mean that you agree not to pursue attorney fees? Because I heard you, I wasn't here last week or whatever it was, but I did watch the film, thank you. And you said you'd had over 2,000 hours, I believe, in work. So would you agree not to pursue those if they are actually acting in good faith and pursuing your demands?
I am saying that right now. I'm saying, but if not, I am going to be on it. And
Okay, I just wanted to clarify
No,
that.
that's a good question,
Yeah.
and it needs to be clear, because right now, if you take 2,000 hours and multiply it by my rate of $325 an hour, you're well over $600,000 I could be asking for.
And that's what I wanted to
It
clarify.
is, and I've dedicated half of my office in one of my other partners, Jordan, helping with it. And so,
At
yeah,
your
right now,
expense.
and at my expense.
Pro bono or whatever.
Yes, on it, and that
And you
part
would,
of it.
yeah.
And I've purposely created a situation where I am not able to bring 1983 actions, because I've created a situation that I'm a witness on it, and that part of it. And I don't want to.
So not only your hours, but your office's hours?
Yes.
Other people, Jordan's or whoever,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, as it sits
Living
right
pro
now,
bono.
yes.
And
it
you,
is.
yeah, okay.
It is, but
And
this, it,
Writing.
no, I know where it is. Well, it is, and that's why I'm here. I'm taking the approach that 10 years ago, I wouldn't have taken this approach. I would have put my head down and I would have just came in here and seen how much money I could have made on it. And that's not my goal. I want to see public safety, and I want to see officer safety, and I want to see officers that are good, that are not violating people's rights on it. And I want to see a new, I'm anxious to see a new personality from our sheriff's department. One that is, as it stands right now, my daughter is instructed, if she gets pulled over by a policeman, she's instructed to call 911 and either drive to our house, so she's there, or she's instructed to go to a business or somewhere where there's other people on it. I have told that to every single person that has a daughter or a young child, that that's what they're to do if they've asked on it. That shouldn't have to happen. And
No, and I agree with a lot of, I mean, you know, training. I think when we talked a long time ago about getting the jail reopened, that was a big issue, was training. And so, no, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. That's not it, I just don't wanna, you know, I
no, it's
understand.
just, it is, and that's, the goal here isn't, I have no money motive in this.
So there's
I'm
no
wasting a
personal gain,
half a
okay.
day today, and I'm not wasting it, because I'm here doing what I think is best for our county and on it. But it is a situation that if isn't addressed, then I'm going to see every penny of it. I will assist whatever plaintiff's attorneys decide to take on, take on these cases because no improvement's being done.
I understand that, yeah, I think we all
that's the-
understand that,
yeah, and that's it. I can't, to me, the last bastion in our system, and I'm prejudiced because I'm an attorney, is our legal system. It is the place where it is not influenced by politics, it is not influenced by anything from outside. It's governed by law and that type of it. And the situation that we're in is, I'm not saying how, I'm not pointing fingers how it gets created, but once it started getting created, it ended up getting to a critical mass, and that critical mass is now. And I feel for the employees. I feel for every person that's in right now in the system because it's not working as it needs to. And the thing is, it can be fixed. It's just going to require that. And so those things need to immediately happen. And if you agree to that, I will assist with it and try to provide. I do trainings for other law enforcement agencies. I do, our office does a lot. I'll devote a lot of my office's resources to helping here at no cost to the county. But the county's got to step up and do what will be required so that the individuals can do their job and not have to be in a situation where they are violating the law. And part of it now is that's occurring simply because of lack of resources.
Lance, I have one question for you, and maybe Sheriff Elect can answer this, but when we talk about officer training, don't we have field training officers, certified field training officers who take the role of training our new deputies, or could you clarify that for me?
No, you do. You get field training on it, but you take a Missoula officer, for example. They do have an FTO as well on it. But what happens with a Missoula officer is they are called out to so many calls that their training becomes ingrained in them. It's like you went to high school and you took math and in that. But now if you were faced with doing a final from the math that you took, you wouldn't remember it because it's just not being readily used on it. So yeah, they go through the academy. And that's a good primer in that part of it. But what isn't is the field experience on it and the constant, the training that's needed is, I went to a class and down in, spent a week learning about it it involves officer-involved shootings and that type of thing, but the training is this, is that if an officer is having to think on how to react to a dangerous situation, they're dead. And that is because it takes the person that is making the decision to shoot an officer is engaged in that. That takes about a third of a second. it takes, likewise, if an officer is having to think about what to do, it takes a third of a second. So whoever started that is in the situation of it winning. A person that is trained and where it becomes like muscle memory, or their brain doesn't have to think, it reacts. It cuts that reaction time to less than 0.2 of a second on it. And for example, little things like when approaching a vehicle or approaching a house, you get called on a domestic. You wouldn't think of these little things, but where you stand on it, that part of it. And if you only are going to one of those every one a month, you let down your guard. And so those are things that just have to be ingrained in it. FTO program's great, and it's part of it, but it's only part of it. And that is instilled by either weekly meetings or where there are going over search situations, and it's partially on the officer. It takes about 50,000 repetition movements to become where it's muscle memory practice, they say. So, drawing your gun, 50,000 to where it becomes automatic, where it's reflexive. I mean, that's on the officer at home to be doing that type of stuff. Same with tasers, knowing which one you're holding in your hand has become an issue. 50,000 times that it has to be practiced so that your body knows which device you have in your hand on it. And so those are things on it. But more importantly than just the FTO is the atmosphere and requirements that are set down as a sheriff of what is going to be expected out of an officer, what they're going to be both on a level of their ethics, moral, and those type of things, and what will be required is set down by the sheriff. And then it carries through based on how that is followed. If you say it's going to be X, but yet Y continues to happen and X doesn't ever get enforced, then you end up, it's badly trained on. And that is a situation that doesn't have to happen. And when you have the knowledge that the sheriff's gonna have your back when you're following the policies, that you're going to be upheld to the policies on it, all of that transfers into public trust, because if you have a situation that is not done correctly, it will be remedied on it. And increasing, like I said, is making it in a manner to where officers want to be here because of the fact that it's a good place to live. They can make a living on it, and they're respected, and they'll make a difference, and that's important. So FTO is just a start.
Yes, but I did want to make sure that we all understood, we do have certified field training officers, so at least that first step is being taken.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not saying we should stop there. I'm just saying at least that first step is being taken.
Yeah, it's critical step.
Okay,
And
thank you.
And having that is something that needs.
Okay, I just wanted to ask about, since this is an interstate highway and federal, plus state, I assume too, is there ways to get help prosecuting cases that are
No,
from the state or the feds?
The answer is not really. So the federal government has the ability to take essentially any case that they want, but they are very picky. So
Well,
you're
probably interstate stuff, yeah.
well,
but a lot
no,
of that
but
is.
like let's just talk like drug transaction. The level of I'm gonna get on track here, but to get the feds interested in a case, it takes a substantial amount of drugs.
But I was wondering about money.
Yeah, there's certainly probably areas out there, but a lot of it falls just on the county on it, and it's a determination priorities of the sheriff's department. I mean, you know, you have first you have highway patrol out there that is in charge of the interstates on it. So if your county is having a lot of crime, which we have a lot of theft, we have a lot of drugs, we have a lot of that going on here. It is not the county's responsibility to patrol the interstate. That falls on the highway patrol.
No, I know,
But
I was
there's-
talking about prosecution, I mean, I
No,
understand
the
that.
prosecution falls, where the crime is committed, it will be charged and filed here, with the exception of the few cases that the feds cherry pick because they won.
Right, but I'm just asking if there's money available, and not necessarily having the feds prosecute. I mean, like kidnapping across state lines would be probably one of theirs, but,
Yeah,
no, I'm just asking
No,
about
I mean,
financial support.
not that I've seen in other counties, you know, there are
But
grants.
this is a unique situation, like you said.
Yeah, and it is, and, you know, likewise, I have property in Missoula. I see the tax bill that I get in Missoula County versus Mineral County, and, you know, frankly, you know, I don't like my taxes going up either, but at the same time, public safety is something that just can't be substituted in, and it's one of those things that, you know, we are by far in a county that is an aged county where ambulance and police officers have to respond to a lot of calls for service, and whether, you know, that part of it, so it's.
I was just
But-
thinking about money available now. I mean, I think we need a public safety levy.
That's what I wanted to talk about
And I
too.
would be willing to work on that, but that's gonna be in the future.
Right, but I did want to address that with Lance and get your opinion on that, because I think it is the time for the commissioners to bring forward a public safety levy. And I know that you said that wouldn't happen right now because there's no trust. Well, how long do we wait before
I
doing
think,
that?
I mean, honestly, in my opinion of when that is when I can say that the writ of mandamus isn't needed. And that can be based on how fast we're moving. And I mean, I'm not here to criticize the county attorney's office because, again, they don't have the resources. They're trying to do what they can, but it frankly is at a snail's pace on it. And it's because they have a limited number of hours of the day, and they have to, one of them has to do a job that should be being handled by at least two, if not three, to deal with the current ones. And
So I do have a question for you and a comment about that. I first wanted to thank you for acknowledging how dedicated Deb Jackson is, because for her to stay, she inherited, she has not been the county attorney for that long. And so to step into this mess and to stay dedicated is really deserving of an acknowledgement. And so I do appreciate that you did that. Acknowledge
It is,
her
but-
dedication. And so going a step further, though, I would like to say also, I don't know what your conversation has been with the county attorneys, but what is their opinion on what they need? And would their opinion satisfy your demands? Because I think it's important that our county attorneys make that final decision on who they hire and what their greatest need is. And then I would ask you, wouldn't this actually take a budget study? Because how could we just suddenly hire someone for $85,000 or $100,000 without taking a close look at the budget to do that?
well, the two things is you can do whatever study you want. It doesn't change the situation of where you're at. And it's like you need a open heart surgery. Are you gonna go do a study for 6 months to figure it out on it?
I want to clarify that. Yeah, I'm not talking 6 months. I mean, calling Jessica Connolly
Yeah,
and saying, could
no,
you come
no,
in,
I
please,
would-
and show us?
I think where.
That's what I'm
yeah,
talking
no,
about.
No, it is. I think that's, it should be done immediately.
Yes.
On it. I'm not, I mean, what I'm saying is, the doctor has told you need a heart surgery or you're gonna die. And that's where you're at in my review of it. And what the county attorney and the departments here, for whatever reason, feel, for lack of a better word, if they come in and ask for additional funds, they could be retaliated against. And that's the way it is. And Deb would have been here, but she has a
Right.
funeral, and I talked to her yesterday about it, on it, and I told her exactly what I was going to request on it, and she is not going to say she needs anything different, other than I think she will say is that study's gonna show she needs more on it, and the detective she's gonna say she would like to have a full-time detective rather than a part-time, a half-time, and
And I think, mean to interrupt,
Yeah.
but I think that she did request that.
right,
in her last
but I
budget.
think the
That was before any of this took place.
right, and that probably shows in the study, most agencies, county attorney's office have that, and it serves a really good purpose, and it's become almost a necessity, especially in trials. But the other thing is, this agency hasn't had the opportunity to work necessarily with someone that has a lot of experience. So when you get someone in initially for a 3-year period on it, one, it allows each department to see how they can benefit from it in the future on it. And hopefully, like with the police, the way I see the sheriff's department is, in 3 years, there's going to be someone that is under the wing of this person on it, and getting that training and going to and learning how to step into his role in the sheriff's department. And then likewise is that you're going to have the same period of 3 years in the county attorney's office for part of that half-time on it to assist. And it may be that this person ends up full-time in the sheriff's and another one's needed. But right now, to solve the mandamus problem and to solve the situation in the sheriff's department for their safety, as well as the public's confidence and ability to investigate the serious crimes, you'll have that resource on it. And that person, having investigated whatever the serious crime is, becomes essentially the detective that the county attorney needs. So I just, I could have came here and said you need both, but I'm trying to, in a sense, be realistic but I know and understand budget, and you can't hire half-assed one. It's gotta be someone really good, that really understands, and that's committed to it. And so that's why it's gonna take that. And likewise, a lot of kids come out of law school that may wanna be county attorneys. This is not the right situation to throw one of those kids into. It is, you need one, if possible, a county attorney that is from a high volume place and a situation where they're up to speed on Brady issues and can look through these cases and get those off of it and solve it. And that's why.
Well, we do know that the county attorney does have a little bit in her budget,
$10,000.
right? That's correct, $10,000 that she could start with. And then I do believe it takes a phone call with Jessica Connolly to come in and go over this and let her tell us. Because it is like you said, though, if I went to the doctor and I needed a bypass today, they might look at my insurance first. So I do think it's acceptable for us to give Jessica a call and meet with her as soon as possible to find out what we have. Because I also don't ever want to minimize how important public safety is to all of us as well. We're citizens here. I want to know that I'm protected. So we are invested in this as are you. And I just don't want to minimize that at all. And so we're willing to immediately get to work on this, and what can we do to help, and what are the steps to take?
Well, and I think one of the things that would be of a big assistant is Wally needs an assistant right now to comply with it. If there's another person that's currently working in the courthouse that can assist him, there's a lot of document task on it and that part of it. But yes, I agree. Right now, you need to go to Jessica, because what I'm asking you is, you're gonna need to make a commitment, 3 years, with a highly trained officer with lots of experience that, where I see it's gonna have to be somewhere between 85 and 95,000 a year to get that person here. And you're going to have a county attorney that is going to request a salary similar to that of what a county attorney receives to do it. And so you're probably there at least 100 plus.
So in addition to talking to Jessica, Dwayne, I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel it's very important that we have this same sit down with our county attorneys, because I do want them to make the decision on what they need. And you've talked to them, so you've given them an idea of what you feel they need, and now shouldn't we hear from them?
Yeah, I mean, Wally's here on it.
I don't know if he wants to speak to that, or if you would rather that Deb is able to speak to that.
I'd rather wait till Deb is back and speak to it. I think it's a function of attitude by people, it's a function of others too. So the biggest problem is not so much the time. The biggest problem is getting people to figure out what they should listen to, what they should pay attention to, what needs to change and what doesn't. And that's a hard thing to do. Changing a mindset is a difficult thing to do, sometimes. So I think we should wait till Deb is back. She gets back Monday early, and she's got something on Monday that she's back. So after next week, things should sort out a little bit.
What are your thoughts on that?
I do, yes. I think we should confer with girls.
So I just have another question.
I'm not against either of those.
No,
things.
no, not at
No,
all.
I am, I'm not getting that feeling at all. Not at
Are you talking about 2 half-time positions or 2 full-time?
No, it'd be one full-time that would be split half-time between the sheriff's department and the county attorney, the
How can
investigator.
you do that? Isn't that a conflict of interest?
No, I don't
If you're
see how.
arresting somebody and then you're in the prosecutor's office?
No, I mean, officers always work with the prosecutor's office.
I know, but yeah.
No, it's, I don't see it as a conflict, because detectives are used all the time.
I know, but they're not, if a person arrested somebody and then was in the prosecution part of it too,
I think that's Lance's recommendation, but again, when
Yeah,
you have a
but no.
sit down with the
Yeah.
attorneys,
Yeah.
yep, that would be
Yeah.
their final decision.
So,
Yeah.
Lance, do you see this as a attorney position or as an officer position?
Both.
Both.
So the person would have to be experienced as a lawyer?
No, two separate people, two separate individuals. One would be a very experienced law enforcement officer, the other would be a very experienced county attorney.
okay,
So
that's
two
what I was
half-
asking.
Two
Okay.
half-time positions?
No.
That's,
No, sorry, my clarity.
One full-time county attorney is
Attorney.
what he's asking, and
Okay.
a half-time that would,
All right, there we
an
go.
officer that would be shared half-time between the sheriff's department and the county attorney's office.
Sounds
And
like-
Correct.
yes, and
Sounds
the
like a
reason,
detective.
another reason is the halftime with the county attorney is to look into cases that have already been prosecuted, that have been
Yeah.
handled. And so it
that makes
allows
sense.
an individual with the experience to say, would this evidence of the Brady material have made a difference in the state's ability to prosecute the case? If the answer is yes on it, then the case needs to be looked at
Okay.
further by county attorneys. His work in the sheriff's department is to assist in a whole ton of different functions, but overall is to provide assistance and guidance in doing investigations of serious crimes. In addition, is to go and see that officers are help in training and in experience and understanding the obligations that fall to, once you are wearing a badge, what are those obligations, and seeing that you follow those obligations.
Okay. So they wouldn't be making a
One
mess.
more short question from Clayton there.
Okay, I have,
Moving on.
first off, I agree with you that we need more people, and it goes to with the FTO. It's kind of hard to have an FTO program when you only have 3 or 4 officers, because who's gonna how's this guy gonna go right along in the field with somebody else if he has to work?
You
There's
know,
not enough to cover the area as it is.
I would say I've never had a complaint from the officers or the FTO officers that it wasn't working out. So, moving forward, we are going to make changes and listen to the sheriff-elect and make things that work.
Yeah, I
But-
think making sure that that is set up to be successful
Yeah.
is important. Like I said, filling those positions and getting that is a big step in it, on it. But, you know, the way I see it is, it sounds like you'll be able to speak to Jessica next week. There's no reason that this can't be set then on the calendar for not, let's see, next Friday is the 23rd, then when's your next meeting after the
The
23rd?
30th.
So, yeah, the 30th.
30th, you want to get on the calendar for the 30th?
I do, because
So-
again,
Yep.
here's the situation on it. You're incurring costs. We're taking depositions, we're doing stuff. My hours are adding up, and, again, right now is, regardless of if the county attorney says they want 2 county attorneys, I don't disagree with that on it. But I'm being realistic right now, and these are for me and the mandamus, and that's what, if these aren't
Right.
agreed to by county attorney and budget, then I just keep moving forward with mandate, I just want everybody
We
clear.
understand, yep.
And I'm moving forward, mandamus,
Yes.
my agreement not to seek attorney fees, all that is off the table. on
We
it.
understand.
Okay.
All right.
Lance, so I do want to direct you to Renee to fill out agenda form so you can get on there for the 30th.
I agree, but what is it this time that the requirement is? And one of the things is, I've never been subjected to this new form. What's that about?
It's been around forever.
Yeah. I don't recall getting a request from you to be on the agenda. So the form isn't new?
So I'm just gonna put answer to my questions of written mandamus. on it.
Yeah, and Renee is your contact.
It's easy.
All right, thank you, Lance.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, sorry we ran over. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Anyone have any public comment?
I got a few questions. If somebody else doesn't want to go first, I'll go first.
Okay,
What date and time is this swearing in? I know it's the 30th. Did you just sign on a
We have
time?
not decided on a time yet. I haven't heard from anybody what time they want. We know we don't want it at 8 o'clock in the morning. You,
I requested 1300, I believe, 1 o'clock.
are you, oh. Okay, did you check with, to make sure it's open at that time with Renee?
Yeah, I can send that.
Okay, because I'm not looking at the schedule, but you did that already?
I think I asked when you told me the 30th.
You have to fill out a form too.
Yeah, you do.
you got a question?
Well, just your flag bearers are going to be at ski training and they want to ski till the last second of the day, so they were working the last things. Yeah, they're up there now on the new chair.
So given what you just said, are we still entertaining 1 o'clock?
I mean, I'm okay with later in the day, I'm just for travel.
Yeah.
My whole family's getting over here, so.
Well, we need to decide.
I like
where
1
it is.
o'clock,
Yeah.
because you have a lot of family coming, right? And we don't know the distances that they're gonna travel. I understand that puts a kink in your plan.
They can adjust.
Okay. So I can write that
They'll
down
be cold by then.
tentatively, but Ryan, please check with Renee to make sure that that's open. Okay, and then do you wanna get back to me and let me know?
Sure.
Okay, perfect.
Another question for Deputy County Attorney, Mr. Colligan. Regarding, I heard Mr. Jasper say approximately half a dozen times there was 3 Brady officers involved in this mandamus. Has a court order, or has a judge decided any of those 3 officers were indeed Brady officers?
I am not aware of an order by the court that said that a particular officer is a Brady officer. What the judges recognizes as an obligation to disclose information. It was called Brady information, and people confuse the question of what that is, but just that all the judge, I think, said is that there should have been information disclosed. There was evidence starting in September of '21 that wasn't disclosed, and that was really the issue regarding 3 separate officers.
Gotcha, so it wasn't Brady in the sense that any of those officers ever provided any sort of false information themselves, right?
There was a question regarding one officer, I think, but I can't remember the court case, but for the most part, that was not the issue. The issue was more related to the issue of disclosure, what was required to be done, and that's really what the issue is about, is disclosure.
Gotcha.
Which did not occur.
Gotcha, thank you. One more question for Sheriff-elect Fong, if I may. If you activate your lights and sirens to pull someone over, and they refuse to pull over, and they drive, let's say, from Dry Creek to a business area with lights and witnesses as town, let's say town pump, is that eluding a peace officer? Or obstructing?
Definitely, I would say definitely obstructing, yes.
Definitely at least obstructing, possibly eluding. Could that result in a police pursuit by chance?
It could.
Good. So, would you advise that advice be given to people?
I would not, however, I mean, it's people's prerogative to say what they need to do to keep their, I guess, family or relatives safe by their means, but it is, violating a crime, yes.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
As a citizen? I don't know if this is a loaded question or not, but piggybacking on what he just asked you, as sheriff-elect, do you feel that you have officers that I should run away from?
Well, I don't know if that's a question I should answer right now. Do I feel that people should violate the law?
No, I'm asking, do you feel there are officers I should be afraid of and run away from?
I do not currently feel that way. No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
I'd like to elaborate on that. There are. Let's be honest, Brian. If I was to get pulled over, I now have cameras on my vehicle. Not because of you, but because of other deputies that are still employed, which I'm now going to lob it back to you guys. At what point do we recognize the extreme liability that continues to happen by having the 3rd deputy still employed?
Well, I haven't heard from the sheriff's office that there's a deputy that needs to be removed.
So, I mean, we have body cams. I mean, if people want to, audio and video record us, I mean, that's their right. If they allege a crime's been committed, I mean, your phone and your
In the
video.
past, the sheriff's department talk specifically has said, you'll need an attorney to get that.
Okay.
And that's why the culture is still
I
there.
can't speak for Sheriff Toth, but our videos, our reports can be requested through the county attorney's office.
Yep.
And that's where I stand with that is every public contact, we're instructed to activate our body cams. Every traffic stop or video is going to be going. And so you can, anybody can request that from the county attorney's office.
And it can be denied too from the county attorney's office,
Yeah,
which it has been.
That's kind of out of my hands.
I know, and that doesn't help your trust issues when the county attorney does deny things like this. A body camera footage from an interaction.
And I think that's one thing that the sheriff, undersheriff can work with the county attorney's office, because ultimately it's just not what, I will do. It's what we can do. So ultimately it's a collaborative team. Like we do our side, they do their side, and we collaborate, get together. And I mean, that's where we need to get to that point is we need to get, I think people need to get over the fact that Sheriff Mike Toth, Sheriff Mike Toth, Sheriff Mike Toth. Things aren't gonna be done the same. I mean, I think I ran on that. Things are gonna be done differently. We have a team. I mean, I mean, I wanna have a good working relationship with the county commissioners, with Wally, with Justice Court, with District Court, because we're here for the same common goal. So, we do need to, fix public trust. And, I think having me in charge and having me send the department office in a different direction, will start that, so.
I
The Mineral County
appreciate
Commission
that.
wanna have a good relationship
Yes,
with.
and we want to just move forward and get where we need to get, because we have the same goals. Thank you for bringing that up. Absolutely.
Gentlemen.
And I wanna agree with that. I think, everybody, you can always look at the past and you say there's mistakes. And that's where the reason Lennox was in here. And I think the whole idea, if everybody gets part of that attitude and try to move forward and don't dwell on, you can dwell on the mistakes that were made, but not expect that they're gonna be repeated, because we have a whole new, we have a new sheriff, we have a new year coming, and I think that's the whole idea, so let's move forward and learn from what was done probably. Yes.
But I'm interested in your sheriff's arrest thing that's in the paper every week. However, about 85% of it's on the freeway. Are you looking for drugs doing that?
So, most of our traffic stops, of course, if they're on the interstate, we have federal overtime, it's called Stone Garden. So they're out, for the Stone Garden portion. It's just overtime that the county doesn't per se pay.
You get money from
We
Stone
get reimbursed, from the federal government. Is if it's on the interstate, we've been advised that we don't do traffic on the interstate unless, of course, something super blatant happens. Somebody's going from line to line in their DUI, of course, we need to do that because, public safety. Can't just let a drunk driver drive down the road because they're on the interstate. But the majority of our interstate stuff is done on Stone Garden on federal overtime, not on their regular shift.
Brian, do they use the sheriff's office cars then?
They do, and I think Stone Garden's actually bought us 2 of the cars. So 2 of the cars purchased that we currently have now are from Stone Garden, from federal monies.
I just wondered when the general public sees them
Yeah, and
out there.
I think
they
it's
don't know
I
that
think it's
Stone Garden.
graphicked. I don't know if it's SG,
Oh.
but anyway, the Stone Garden, it's on the car.
Oh, okay.
Deputy Kunzelman has one, and the sheriff's current car that's in our lot is also purchased by Stone Garden.
So when we talk about that Stone Garden, if we were to discontinue the Stone Garden grant, we get to keep the vehicles?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not suggesting anything other than, what if we didn't have that grant anymore? Are they gonna take those back? No.
No, they're ours. So.
And that's about 85,000?
I don't know.
I don't know how much they are outfitted. I mean, you can.
I can't, we could look on the insurance policy and
No,
find
I don't
out.
mean the cars, I mean the grant.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know.
I think the grant's
Right
over
off.
$100,000.
100,000,
so we're
okay.
right on there.
Yeah.
But it's used for equipment, overtime,
Mm-hmm.
Administrative stuff, logging it, and stuff like that.
Sean, did you have a question?
No.
No? Okay. Glenn?
Guys, Glenn back here. I've got a question about the traffic stops. I read the sheriff's log every week too. And when it appears that things are pretty blatant violations, no driver's license, no registration, things like that, why are there so many warnings? Why are people being cited? It looks like they're obviously in the law.
Definitely too.
Yeah.
Man, public comment, right.
I wish Wally was still here too.
Welcome
That's
to
all
the
right.
hot seat,
So-
Ryan.
Send me back.
So I answered this on the west end, I believe a couple weeks ago, is we have officer discretion as officers. We don't have to cite, there's all sorts of reasons why, somebody may not have their driver's license. And we have officer discretion on whether we write a ticket or not. We can't force people to write tickets. Currently, over the last 4 or 5 years, we haven't had job evaluations, but we can have performance evaluations. And so we're gonna look at that going forward is, like productivity and just have some kind of evaluations going forward, to show that they're doing stuff, but we can't force people to write tickets.
The obvious things, stop sign violations, those could be pretty obvious. Speeding, just bad driving in general. And expired registration, I mean, there's no excuse for it.
That's right.
I mean, they can't say they forgot it someplace, like their license.
So, and one big thing leading into that is our court systems are pretty busy. I mean, I think everybody can acknowledge that. If we wrote tickets for everything, it would even cluster the justice system up even more. Not saying that, you know, that's why we give warning citations, but, you know, there's a lot of things to give warning tickets to. If I catch Dawn going 6 over and I pull her over, and, you know, I think people deserve a warning. You know, if it's super blatant, I don't get warnings for it, but people deserve warnings, you know, for especially simple traffic.
I was county treasurer for 25 years, and we looked for sources of revenue, and there was a helicopter logging outfit out here at Broadway's. And I went to everybody trying to get somebody to go out there. They will license if the cops come. You know, motor vehicle licenses, the tree planters from Oregon, you get after them. That guy in Oregon will fork it right over, nothing flat. I could not get any cop to go out there, but I did get Roman Zalawi, and he had a heyday. They were warrants out there on those people, and we don't want that kind of people in our county. Plus, it was a revenue. If you're not licensing your vehicle, and another thing, half of Alberton is licensed in Missoula at that time. Well, they're not supporting their schools or their city government or anything. It's a pretty big source of revenue.
So
You
that's,
know-
it's a big source of revenue, but for me being here, it'll be 5 years in February, is we've very rarely been full staffed. So when you have 1 or 2 deputies on at a time, trying to do everything, trying to do that stuff and criminal stuff, it's nearly impossible. So, I mean, with all the needs, you know, there also has to be, you know, more officers to fulfill a lot of those needs. Is, you know, having 2 guys on, a lot of times we're answering calls on each side of the county with no backup other than highway patrol backup. So maybe, you know, like as far as the licensing things and stuff like that, maybe that's more directed for the highway patrol. I mean, they're also shorthanded, it's wintertime. But those are things we're gonna have to work through, and those are things we're gonna have to figure out. You know, of course, this is the slower time of the year, which is really not that slow. So, and I think the call log, you guys can all see that we're pretty busy. We don't stay stagnant very often. And when we are, we're typing reports, trying to be compliant and getting everything up to the county attorney's office, so.
But I do think like that registration, if you have stopped, there isn't a reason for a warning of registration. That's black and white.
Well, I mean, to a certain point, right?
Because if they haven't licensed, they sure as hell don't have insurance either.
Tomatoes,
But then
right?
there's the new people coming to the county too. They aren't employed.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes there's a question.
So I mean, there's a lot. I think, you know, somebody sits, you know, in the seat of a deputy, you know, under sheriff. There's a lot more than meets the eyes. You know, there's a lot of report writing. There's a lot of taking evidence. You know, now that's in the cloud, saying up to the county attorney. I mean, we have a case. It's not just me talking to Dwayne and saying, hey, Dwayne, you get a ticket. I mean, we're talking from time of stop and writing him a ticket, justice court, getting everything up into the county attorney's office. We're talking hours. So it's not as much as just writing a ticket.
On the hand, if people get used to it, if I'm not licensed, you're gonna get a ticket, it'll spread. I think
It doesn't stop people, because and I'll just give you a wide example, is if Dawn's driving while suspended and I give her a ticket for driving while suspended, guess what? She's driving while suspended, she's not gonna stop. If I give somebody a DUI and they refuse a breath sample and I seize their driver's license, is that gonna keep them from driving drunk again? Absolutely not. They're just gonna continue to drive drunk again, and they're just gonna continue to drive without a driver's license. It's their driving habit, it's their habit. They're gonna continue to do it whether they have a license, insurance, or not. I mean, we have some people that have like DUI number 12. I wish that DUI number 1 would have stopped it, but I mean, 11 more times, the process keeps going unless they want to stop it.
Ron, do we get, like on the traffic stops, do we get full return on that ticket? Say it's $50.
I don't know exactly, that would be a good question for Kim Tarrant. I think some
Yeah, I
of it
was
probably
thinking-
goes to the state.
Cause I asked, Mike, when he was in here one time, the very same question, why there were so many warning tickets. My thought was the 4-way stop in St. Regis. You know, somebody runs that, I think they ought to get a ticket.
Well, I
You know?
think so too. I mean,
Yeah,
you could,
but,
if you guys want to hire a traffic cop, we'll do it. Because they could sit there and write
right, they could
20
write a lot
20
of,
books of
yeah,
tickets a day.
yeah, that one and the
Try
one
West
coming
End
off.
too.
And
That one,
I
the
was
one coming
told
off the freeway
by
home.
the undersheriff,
Speeding by my house.
that the money does not come to the county, it goes to some revenue in the state
So
for
I,
those.
Yeah, and I
And
think
that's what
that's
he
what Mike
told me
said.
right in this room.
I believe a portion goes to the state, the county, I think general fund probably gets a portion of it. Some counties, even a portion of it goes back to the sheriff's office budget. But, I mean, I think Kim would be the one to best answer that question, because I know the sheriff's office doesn't get anything as far as their tickets, but whether the county does or not, I don't know.
And then if I could have just a minute, I wanted to talk to Glenn, because I heard Ryan saying, I'd like to clarify this, because he's absolutely right. Evaluations are not done, or rarely done, but I wanted to clarify why that is. It is advised to us from our general counsel not to have that in our policy, that evaluations will be done annually. And the reason for that is because it's not followed through with. And then, if you try to terminate someone who didn't have an annual evaluation, and the policy said they should, then you have a wrongful discharge suit. So, you can give evaluations, but you are not required to do that. And I'm happy to hear that Ryan plans on implementing for his office, for his department.
Office
Is it going to be an office after your,
is the sheriff's
It-
office.
it's a department right now, it's an office when you take over.
It bothers me when people call it a department, but.
No, I know it's an office, but because we had an appointee, isn't that why it was a department?
No, people
You used to
say-
tell me that all the
Well,
time. You
that's what
came
I-
in my office and
that's-
told me
well,
that all the time.
Just to appease people, because it's like sheriff department, sheriff department, sheriff department,
Oh.
it's the sheriff's office.
Office.
And so, yes.
We're all offices, that's how we
I
remember,
am-
that's how I told Renee. If you look at all the offices, sheriff follows suit. But going back to what I was saying, I'm happy to hear that you will have evaluations. And I hope that you will share those with the commissioners, because the only way that we can know what's going on is to see those evaluations and to support what you're doing. But Glenn, so that you might have went away with a question about, well, how come they're not evaluating? That's why.
Yeah, I wasn't sure why you directed that to me.
Because I thought Ryan said to you, we don't have, when we talked about the tickets,
Yeah.
I think you said something about, well, we don't have evaluations, so.
Yeah, like, as far as like, even performance evaluations, we don't have any kind of evaluations. The only evaluations that we go through in the sheriff's office is the FTO program, and we as FTOs evaluate our trainees daily, in a daily observation report.
So that was why, because I heard him say that to you.
Your officers, right?
We can't.
So what's their worth?
It's in statute.
Well, what's their worth is
You can?
is responding statutorily. You can't. What their worth is going out and ultimately our goal as officers is especially young people. I deal with a young person who's speeding, who has a friend in the vehicle. Is to correct the behavior and correct the behavior. Especially as with a young individual. Or step in during some critical, time in somebody's life where somebody's, maybe having a bad day. We all have bad days, and step in and, hopefully correct that in a different manner. Tickets don't fix everything. Tickets are just money oriented for the most part, and sometimes yeah, they need to be done. But accountability, I think, as I think Sean can even attest, is my goal is to say, hey, this is what you're doing. This isn't right. I understand you're maybe having a bad day.
what can we do to, you know, fix it? Do you need to talk with somebody? A lot of times, you know, a lot of stuff comes out on a traffic stop that's not traffic oriented, and, you know, we can get them help, and we can assist them in ways that, you know, writing a ticket can't help.
And I have just a really small example of that. I actually, my tags were up in October, and I went in and paid for them, stuck the tag in my glove compartment, and put it on this morning before I came to town, because I suddenly thought about it. You know, and I would appreciate it if I got stopped for not having my tag on, that I got warned instead of a ticket for something that I forgot about.
That's true.
You know, I mean, so there's always kind of shades of gray, I think, in
Just
things.
one real quick thing on that. I agree with you, Ryan. Sometimes a ticket, not writing a ticket will solve a problem 10 times better than writing this guy a ticket, because he's gonna go away with an attitude.
And just because, I mean, you can see our warrant list, it's inevitable. But let's say somebody from Washington comes through here, I write them $100 ticket for whatever, and they leave Montana, of course, they're not gonna come back to pay the ticket. Then it goes into warrant, so we're talking, you know, paperwork from justice court, now up into the courts, and now we have warrant for them, and that warrant could be outstanding forever, until they get stopped, because of course, we're not gonna extradite, I hope, for $100 ticket. Like, if they get pulled over in Washington, they're not gonna get extradited over here, because it's gonna cost us thousands of dollars to go get them. So, it is a way for revenue. However, statutorily, we can't force people to write tickets, and just because we write a ticket doesn't mean we're gonna get payment for a ticket.
But some people do pay them, because I got one in Washington when I lived in Idaho.
Yeah, some people
And I
do.
ran a stop sign, and I was speeding, and I was doing all kinds of things, and the guy gave me one ticket for running a stop sign. But it went from 40 down to 25, like within a block, you know. So anyway, he wrote me a ticket. Well, I paid that, even though I lived in Idaho.
And
Man, most people will.
And I think I've spoken previously also, it's I think our duty to per se sell the ticket. I'm not gonna be, you know, a big bully and write somebody a ticket and go, here, you know, knucklehead, you did this, and like, why'd you do this, and like counsel them. I'm gonna write them a ticket, I'm gonna say, hey, this is what's going on, this is your court date, I'm gonna try to sell it, so they do come in and pay it, and don't fight it, because, you know, simple
Well, and you can
stop sign
send it in
ticket
by mail
costs-
too, right?
Yeah.
That's what
Well,
I did.
Yeah, you can do it.
Well, he made me feel like I got off easy. He said, yeah. I said, did I do something wrong? And he said, yeah, multiple things.
And I mean,
And he wrote one ticket.
and that's another thing is the warnings. Somebody could be cited for speeding, right? They could get a citation for that, but a lot of times, you know, we go like 2 or 3 warnings. So you can cite for one thing. Let's say they have a broken windshield, you give them a warning, because anybody doesn't have a broken windshield. You can get a warning for that, right? And then, you know, maybe improper use of a turn signal. So maybe they are getting cited for one thing, but getting multiple warnings also. So, and that's, I mean, ultimately one thing that, you know, we're gonna have to keep up on and, you know, look at. But as far as, you know, going forward in January, we're gonna start, you know, performance evaluations, and that'll help us in a direction to get people to the training that they want. You know, let's say we have one officer who wants to, you know, work drugs, one officer who wants to, you know, specialize in like PFMAs, like domestic violence, and so get them to the training that they want to go to, so we can, you know, benefit the whole community by having people specialize in 6 different things rather than everybody specialize at one thing.
Well, I've been retired for quite a while now, and I'm not aware of the horrible crime that apparently is going on, especially drugs in the county. I'm isolated, and I think if you're gonna try and pass the levy, you're gonna have to.
Well, it's gonna have to be
alert
sold, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
you
most
are.
definitely.
You know,
We worked, there was one other attempt since I've been commissioner, way back years ago, when we tried to pass one, and it came close. Just
Well,
wasn't enough.
And another thing, way back when, I look around, I'm probably the oldest one in here, sorry to say, but.
You older than Denley?
There used to be competition between the sheriff and the highway patrol on getting drug stops on the freeway, because whoever did that got some type of money.
I don't think that's legal.
Well, and said, what in the heck are you doing on the freeways? You're supposed to
I
be
knew earlier.
protecting the county, and Montana Highway Patrol is on the freeways. So I just didn't want something like that happening.
No.
Well, that's why I asked about the county cars on the freeway.
Yeah.
Yeah. But don't we also have the drug enforcement people come through here once in a while?
They're here currently, they've been here all week, so they just got like 12 pounds or something last night.
Well,
So, I mean, and that's another thing is we're gonna have a drug agent, a DEA drug agent here every Friday. He's gonna have an office with the undersheriff, like that's been designated once we go through the MOU process with them is, you know, that's been promised. And he'll be here, so he'll assist with that. He'll assist our young deputies and, you know, with all this coming is we're gonna get training and, you know, hopefully sign on with, you know, the DEA and stuff like that, so we can get that training. And so if we need the help, then we get all of their stuff. We get their agents up here. Their agents are up here a lot. And so I wanna welcome them to come because there's a lot, I think, that people are gonna see. And as far as like public perception is, I hope the wow effect will be here, you know, by July. Like people are gonna say, holy cow, what in the world's going on? Our social media was stagnant for like months unless it was directed at a specific person. Our social media is gonna be used as much as possible because that's gonna show you guys what we're doing and how we're doing it.
But again, that makes more work for our county attorney's office too, right?
The what?
The DEA or the DEA.
So a lot of the federal case, I guarantee you that case last night is gonna go federal. As far as the DEA taking stuff, you know, they're gonna be working there's a lot of giant federal cases here.
Okay.
Pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds of meth, you know, tons of pills, thousands of pills. So he's gonna be working at building the bigger cases, in Mineral County.
So does that generate any revenue for Mineral County then? Those big busts?
So the big bus, they should. Currently, we have an MOU with the Northwest Drug Task Force, and I think for the past 5 years, we've got nothing. So it's kind of like rub my back, I'll rub your kind of thing. And that's gonna be something that I'm gonna take care of, you know, within the first, you know, month or so.
So I
That
have
big
one-
bust
no.
that they made in Butte. And now when they first, and they talk on the news, they know that stuff comes through.
Oh,
Mineral County is what I
Ryan?
think.
When you talk about that, it brings to mind, I remember when there was a powder spill and the officers were concerned about the powder and they rushed right in to help. And so it makes me think of the fentanyl and what are you guys using for protective gear? And we don't have to talk about that right now, but it's just a thought I want you to have. What's your protective gear and what's your protective policy?
as far as like fentanyl,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of times, I mean, if you guys have watched the news, like, if you get introduced to fentanyl, you don't know that until, you know, you're laying
Yeah.
on the ground. So of course, all the medications that reverse it, we all carry it. You know, we try to double glove when it's, you know, an idea.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, exactly.
an incident comes to mind where an individual searching a car, not here in Mineral County, but the floorboard's wet. And of course, you know, the hand goes on the floorboard and, you know,
You get absorbed through your skin?
she took it transdermally through the skin and overdosed.
So is there a policy, you know, because we know that now and we're aware of it, before you search a car, you have to have your protective gear on?
Well, every time we search a car, we have gloves on.
Yeah, but is gloves, is that a big enough protector? And we can talk about it
I
later.
mean, we can wear
It just
mittens
comes
if you
to-
want.
What about inhaling it?
So inhaling it,
yes.
that was an issue
Yes.
just recently, where they inhaled it. I mean, we can't walk around like the Ghostbusters.
No,
I think-
but before
Whatever
approaching.
seems.
I think a lot of people, even when we went to external carriers, you know, people are like, holy cow, you guys are like militarizing yourself without knowing, you know, how
Could be too
it
late.
affects my body is like all my weight's on my shoulders, it's not on my hips, so if it's in the air, I mean, it's one of those things that we can't walk around with, you know, full oxygen, full breathers on. It's, you know, one of those things that I hate to say it, just kind of just happens, but at least we have the tools to
reverse that until we can get somewhere for medical aid.
I think Bill had a question.
Thank you. And I apologize, the conversation's kind of gone beyond, so I'm gonna circle back just a little bit. And I will be brief, I promise. First, just a cautionary note. I heard a comment made about the commissioners looking at evaluations of officers. I would be very cautious about that. I would consult your county attorneys as to whether or not what the role of the county commissioners are, because that may be inappropriate. I know it would be in a school setting, because it's a performance-related issue. It's discussed with the immediate supervisor. They develop a plan of improvement and correct any deficiencies. But if it comes to the county attorney, or it comes to the commissioners, it might be for recommendation for termination. So that you just need to be cautious about moving down that trail. The rest that I have is in regard to the levy and the resources necessary to move forward addressing the writ of mandamus. So not questions that have to be answered now, but I think they're questions that are out there that people have and are going to want answers to before they may look at supporting any kind of public safety levy. And that is how or who created the environment that led to the writ of mandamus. I think that's going to be very, very important. And although I don't want to just backtrack for the sake of backtracking as a part of a positive plan in moving forward, I think that has to be addressed, okay? I think also who is responsible for vetting. I read the policy. It said may do a background check. I think those in our world in education were considered weasel words, and it said they will conduct to strengthen your policy.
I do want to, let me just address that really quick, because if the sheriff wants to do his background checks, it is not shall, HR shall do it, HR may. And then the sheriff's department, because they do a different type of background check, that's why it's may rather than shall.
Thank you for that. And the question that I have is, what is HR's role? And at the time, the individual that was responsible for HR in their role in assuring that that was done. Because in the educational world, as the superintendent, I assumed that role, but I always deferred back to my principals and said, before I make this recommendation, have you vetted this individual? Have you done a reference check? Have you done a background work?
Sure, and as HR though, I feel a responsibility that you give me 3 minutes to answer that, because I did leave the HR position. And whose responsibility was it? Ultimately, the sheriff took that responsibility and did not want HR doing it. The sheriff, I'm sure, would be very upfront with you and tell you that he took that responsibility. What is his accountability? I have no idea. I had no power as HR. The power, the commissioners and the department heads, I could only bring forward my recommendations, and from there it went to the department heads.
I think that's convenient, but I think the responsibility is to ensure that the process is right. And I do think there's some accountability there, personally.
Yes,
And
Sean. No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay. I'm just saying, there
Sure.
should be, if there is indeed that role, then I think that there's a responsibility to fulfill that role.
And what I like is that it actually, comes then to the commissioners to make sure that that's being followed. If HR can't get you to follow it, the commissioners can, I think. And so I don't think we'll see that problem.
Were those concerns brought to the commissioners prior to the hiring of the deputy candidates?
The commissioners have always been involved. Yes, the commissioners are always involved in those processes.
Sean, you had?
Yeah, I mean, the question itself presupposes a falsehood. So that falsehood is grossly inaccurate in Lance's application for mandamus, which you're talking about is that a deputy did not receive a background check, right?
I think there were several issues that were.
Sure,
that were
as
not
far as-
followed, but it
as
would have
far as-
been, if proper vetting had taken place, I think that it would have been.
So there's two issues there. Proper vetting, we'll talk about in a second, but, so the sheriff's office runs the triple I, right, which is required by state law, Montana Code annotated, but there's no felony convictions on that. That's all that's required by state law, right? Vetting is a term that anyone can subjectively say, well, we vetted, and found they don't like this, don't like that. Every deputy that was employed in this scope of mandamus had a triple I gun. And the commissioners have seen every one of those triple Is because they're involved in the hiring process, where when you sit in here and interview, the triple I is literally placed in the packet in front of you. So you and I can have a conversation more if you'd like outside of this, but gross inaccuracy. Every triple I was done as a deputy commissioner.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, we are already 15 or almost 20 minutes over, so we're going to adjourn for today. Oh, I'm sorry. You know, until I eat, I can't do anything, because honestly, I'm having an attack here of needing food.
No, it's all right. Well, no, action item,
Are you done?
intern requesting
Are
to
you still
advertise and fill the
recording?
vacancy.
Yeah, because they are discussing county
She's not a
business.
department head, so.
Was she here as Kim or Dale? Let's find that out, because Dale wasn't here and they needed that position.
Well,
I understand what you're saying to me.
just like I said last week, is Wayne wasn't here, so I was here requesting it during public comment. My
Yeah.
cough has been allowed to in the past. so-
I don't know about that, but I know that I will tell you, as I always do, I did check with general counsel. Because I wouldn't tell you something that I don't know to be true. I have to look into.
That's good to know.
Yeah, sorry to be doing something different, but Deb is gone and we busted some people last evening. And so they needed to have their appearances today. And so that's what I was doing. Okay. So here's the skinny. So we had a couple of people get tickets for vicious dog questions in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And part of the dispute came from the fact that one of the dogs was killing chickens, and the dog, per state law, got shot for pursuing livestock. And the owner of the dog was all disgusted that the neighbor shot their dog for killing chickens and they should have to pay. And so that was fine. So then Deb's going to prosecute the other people for the dog. The guy who owned the dog came in, and it turns out he's got a Scots last name. It's McKinnon or McKenna or something, but it's Scots anyway. I can't remember. But I had a long visit with him about it, and I said, well, you can't shoot a dog under the old law because the old law says it's got to be hoofed livestock unless they changed it. So let me look it up and see. And sure enough, they did change it. When we went to raising rheas, ostriches, and emus, we included poultry as part of the law. We never used to do that. And then I went back and looked at the notes and legislative stuff and thought, you know, the reason we included emus, rheas, poultry, and ostriches is because the cows worth $2,000 and emus worth $5,000. So I was like, holy crapola. But the legislature changed the law. So he was legitimate to do it. So then I looked at the statute that they cited him under. They said they cited these people under a county ordinance. I said, give me the ordinance. And I looked, and guess what? There isn't one. We did a hearing, 12 of 18, for an emergency ordinance for vicious dogs, and published the notice, and said, yeah, this is a notice regarding a discussion of an ordinance for vicious dogs. The commissioners had a hearing and did the discussion. And it said, yeah, we'll adopt the state section and we'll do an ordinance, and the ordinance will become effective 30 days after its acceptance. And then did another hearing in 30 days and said, yeah, because that expired in 90 days, we'll do this one and we'll do that ordinance. And we've complied with the state law regarding this section, so I dug up the section per the attached affidavits, and the affidavits were missing. So I thought, this is really interesting. So I went to the clerk and recorder's office, dug out the affidavit, sent this recorded, and the affidavit said we publish this notice once a week for 3 successive weeks in the paper regarding consideration of an ordinance for vicious dogs, not the ordinance. So while we've been writing tickets, we never did the ordinance. We did a resolution saying we're going to do one, but we never did it. So Deb and I changed the tickets we had. The state statute is a violation of those. Directed the sheriff's department yesterday to say, you cannot write tickets under this ordinance because we have no ordinance. We never did it. So I sent that out. So the first thing this morning, Ryan Funk catches me in the hall and says, this is mine. I copied Lake County's. They did it. They wrote it this way. And I said, no, they didn't. I was their guy who did this for 7 years. And we never prosecuted anything under this because that was the resolution of intent, but they don't have a vicious dog ordinance. And what you guys looked at copying was the Anaconda and the Superior ordinance, which say license your dog. That was not the discussion. The discussion, we want to cite people if their dog bites people, not licensing dogs. No, Wally, that's not true. And I had to argue with Ryan for 10 minutes in the hallway before I got to understand there's a difference between a resolution and an ordinance. An ordinance says this is the law, this is the penalty. A resolution says we're resolved to do this thing. Yeah, we are, but we never did it. So we'll write the ordinance in the next month or 3 weeks when we have some time to do it, but we do not have one. So what I did is, I told the sheriff's office, don't write this way anymore. Write it under the state law so people can't get away with it. But it was a mistake, and why the devil from 2018, 2019 till now, everybody thought we could do it when we couldn't. And there's nothing worse than writing somebody a citation for breaking the law when there was no law they were breaking.
Wally, if I could add a little bit to that.
Yeah, please.
So, like the resolution said, this is a resolution to enact an ordinance, which we never did write. Because it's my understanding that a county attorney would be the one to write that ordinance, not us.
Not necessarily. Sometimes they're written by persons, like legislators get some drafts of bills from this public. Some come from the county attorney or a state's attorney. The SPCA writes them sometimes.
Right, but we, none of us
But the county
were.
attorneys here have never written an ordinance, to my knowledge.
Well, maybe they
It's always
didn't,
been-
and that may be the problem, Dwayne, is who was supposed to.
Yes, I think that is because, I don't know about you, but did you guys have the skill to write an ordinance? Did we? Yeah, so I think.
And it's
that's-
always been handed up there anyway.
Yeah, I think that is what happened. But along the way, I have heard a lot of grumbling about, how are we supposed to cite this person? There's no fee schedule. How much is the ticket?
Because there's no ordinance, they never set the penalty. Nobody said you serve 5 days in jail, 50 days in jail, 500 days in jail? Is it a $500 fine, $20, 50? Nobody did it. So Kim Tarrant and I had to visit about it yesterday, and I said, look, this we just need to fix. But it's a bit of an embarrassment, it's a bit of a mess. But more than that, if I tell you, this is what an ordinance is, this is what a resolution is, I do not speak my piece until I usually do the research. So I got all the stuff out of the clerk's office. When you go to the county website, you can find references to a dog ordinance that talks about the resolutions. There's no copy of an ordinance, and there's a history saying, this is Anaconda's, this is Superior's, this is Missoula's. Fine. We didn't do it. So we're still fine in the sense that we can do it under the state statute. But it's just one more thing to clean up, that we just need to clean it up. And nobody knew. And had the gentleman not come in the office and asked me, I wouldn't have looked at it. So what I also did then is I went back and checked every other ordinance I could check. The biggest one we have is the community decay ordinance. And we actually did an ordinance on that, copy of Missoula's. But I did not find any other ones the county has.
Correct.
And so if there's more that we don't have that it turns out we need, we'll write it. But we just never did. And I just thought you guys need to know the update is we straightened it out by saying, do the state law, don't screw it up otherwise, get it done. And then we'll get it finished, and any others too. And if the other thing is, if you remember, Dwayne, any other ordinances we were supposed to do that didn't get done, or that got sent upstairs to be done and nobody did them, we can do them. It's not a problem, but I just think, follow.
Well, it's not like that we write a resolution every day, or every other day, or
Right.
even once a month.
You might do one a year.
Yeah, maybe,
Five,
yeah.
Wally, could I put you down for a tentative date for having that ordinance for us so that this time we don't lose sight
Maybe
of
the
it?
middle of January would work.
The middle of January.
Right.
to come back in, yeah.
See, what we're trying to finish the Brady disclosure information and going back through a record of those in the next couple of weeks. I'm trying to get a lot of that caught up.
Oh, that's okay. No.
And so I will do this when I get that finished. And I'm also trying to do the Iron Mountain meeting, which I want to talk to you about in a minute. So we're
I
gonna-
just don't want us to
so let it fall.
lose this. So,
10th, 8th, 12th, what day are we meeting?
okay, there is a January 13th.
That would work.
Okay, so I'm gonna put it in my calendar, but you will still need to fill out a form and have a spot put on the agenda by Renee. But I'm
Yeah.
putting it in that expect Wally with the ordinance.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Or January 13th.
Plus, that'll be Friday the 13th. That's
It is
appropriate.
Friday the 13th.
That should take care of everything.
I get to whack somebody's dogs that way, yes.
Thank you.
Well, Ryan, I apologize for that, that ordinance not being taken
Well,
care of.
I mean, it's, because it wasn't done forward, I don't think we can cite the state ordinance without the adoption.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, at this point.
To our knowledge, it was done.
Yeah, and so I feel, that we can't even cite the state code because it says that it has, with the adoption of a county ordinance, so I don't think we cite anything at this point.
And do we need to have a public meeting for this ordinance?
When we do the ordinance, we do a public meeting. and we
Right,
notice
so
it.
yes, we do, if it's a public meeting
Yeah, you
specifically
notice
for
it.
that
It's
ordinance.
published in the paper. Yeah.
But we can't do that without knowing for sure that we'll have that.
No, what we do first is have a discussion about this is the stuff
Yeah.
we put in, what's your memory, and then we notice it, and then finish it, so it will look like something that people can actually review and make comments on. That's how we do it.
So this will be a discussion of the ordinance?
It'll be a discussion of this is the draft, this is the ideas, this is
Draft
what
and
we borrowed
ideas,
from Bill
okay.
and that's it. And there are multiple different sections. One of the sections says the county can adopt a vicious ordinance. The other ones say it's illegal to have a vicious dog, it's illegal to whatever else. So the one we can cite people under is not the one that says the county may, it's the one that says it's illegal to. That's what we can do. There's a difference in the two. Some are broader, some are narrower, some are state enacted, some are county, some are city enacted as well. But we don't want licensed dogs, I don't think, do we?
What?
We don't want licensed dogs, do we?
You can in Superior and Alberton if you want to. St. Regis won't license it.
It would be nice to have some money to do something with the animals that are strays around the county
Yes, it
and
would.
causing problems and
I
being
would have to
neglected.
agree with you there.
There's a big problem. I've had 5 calls about dogs this week.
All different dogs too.
Yes.
Yeah. Betsy, have you, and I don't expect you to do this, but are you aware of any grants that the county might qualify for?
There's a lot of animal grants, but typically it's, you gotta have the property or the facility or something in order to get that money and have a good idea of, or even just an animal person, animal cop or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that go on with that. I don't think it's impossible, but it's.
Mm-hmm.
I know the city of Superior used to have a dog catcher.
Yeah, but the problem is, we're talking
County
county.
versus city, yeah.
Yeah,
Just
instead
county.
of city, yeah. Although I would take a look at their ordinance because they have a really, I think, a well-written
And
vicious
Andy in the
dog
city, Andy
ordinance.
is like one of the pound masters, so technically dog catcher. So.
Yeah, they have a facility that they can keep the animals in.
Yeah, but I would just say we take a look at their ordinance because it's very well-written and I think it's fair to all parties involved, the dog
Brother
and
did
the
a good
owner.
job.
Sean, did you have a question?
I was just thinking on the interim as far as the citation, and Sheriff Mike Fontaine and Wally can speak to the validity of it, but disorderly conduct, there's the hazardous, physically offensive condition under there, the interim until they get that going.
That's another way to write it, if you wanna do that too, you can do it either direction, it doesn't matter. The problem is it gets the problem dealt with, that's the issue. Without having a problem with the rest. And my dad wrote Superior's ordinance, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did. He was a better writer than me.
this was just an
I
update.
didn't feel like it was the intent of
Okay. So we have a tentative date for discussion of
Yeah,
the ordinance that
13th,
you'll write, and
yeah,
from there we'll
13th,
plan
yeah,
public
yeah.
meetings.
Yep.
Okay.
So your second update is the question of policy manuals?
That's the end of that one. The next item on the agenda is policy manual update.
Yeah, so the update is this: we didn't get the federal checklist page from the US Attorney's Office, which is supposed to send us the damn thing, and they haven't. And also Josh at Cascade County didn't forward it too, but he's supposed to forward it. Maybe we'll have it today. Because that checklist form is a great thing for hiring people, especially sheriff's department persons, detention, 9/11, et cetera. So we got that form ordered, because that checklist form is the one the federal courts required for everybody on Brady for all of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is 7 states and the Marianas Islands, et cetera. So when we get that, then we have a big step completed in how to do that. The last language of compliance, Deb worked on the other day, and I think she'll finish it Monday or Tuesday when she gets back. And that incorporates the checklist from that. Post did not have a checklist in Helaman, which didn't surprise me. The AG's office learned when they were at the same meeting I was at that the federal government did have a checklist. So I think Post may at some point in time, when we get done with our directive line on it, Post, which regulates officers, may end up adopting a bunch of our stuff to do that. And so that would be a step in the right direction. And that would be major. And I talked to Cashman yesterday for a minute, and the problem is how to make sure that people keep track of the details you have to be an officer for post certification, like your mental health, whatever else you do. So I don't know if we'll make the checklist up. Deb's got one made that goes to HR to do that and keep track of it that way, because they're better set up to keep track of the details. But we haven't got there yet. But we're making good progress in the sense of get there. I just wish people would send us the things we need from them. But the problem they have is it's not been a priority for those guys. And we're also waiting for information back from Ravalli County that hasn't come yet on those questions. So as soon as we get that, and I also found out the person we're waiting for at Ravalli County used to be my brand inspector. So I called the chin in on that yesterday. So I hope he gets it back to us today.
See how much pull you got.
We'll see how much pull the Department of Livestock still has over Mr. Holton. You know him too, yeah.
I just have a question. I haven't been able to come to some of these meetings talking about the policy manual updates. What are we looking specifically to update? What is the changes that are looking to be made?
Changes are one that, the issue of discipline, hiring, firing ends up on the commissioner's desk in large part. Each department has its own people, has to make the record, do that, gives recommendations. And then the other part is you have to qualify with a background check of persons regarding crimes, which is basically something better than the CJIN in the CJIN system for, is there a history, criminal record, what is there, who does which, where information goes. And then the judge had a checklist that he gave Deb about it for, and she's got that list, I don't have it in front of me, but it's in one of the judge's orders, and these are the things. And so basically what we end up with is compliance with the judge's order from the writ on that portion of it.
And is it county-wide employees? Are we talking specifically to like sheriff's department?
I think a lot of it's countywide in the sense of, I think it's law enforcement, which is sheriff's department, judges, which is not judges themselves, it's gonna be the people with you, the people with county attorney upstairs. And probably the question that remains unanswered is, the district court actually works for the state, but actually works for the county. So there's this kind of nebulous question of, what do we do with Jamie Talbot and company? I don't have a straight answer from anybody yet, and I haven't had a chance to quarter a district judge and ask. But it's always a bit of a confusion, Your Honor, because you do not work for the state.
Right.
But at the same time, district court does go for the state. But at the same time, if they work for the state, why the hell are we paying them?
Right.
You see what I'm
Elected
saying?
officials, right?
But it's kind of a weird deal how they did that. Yeah, but the commissioners end up with the issue of how do you defend, how do you make the record, because the commissioners run HR. So really what it more or less is how to make sure that the HR process that everybody has to use, because state law requires that for everyone. Every person has to use the HR through commissioner's process. That's state law. And so that's an issue, that's item 5 in the list of elected officials and other officials, and you're not called an elected official. Actually, what you're called is a county officer. So there is no definition that says elected officials and all the statutes about it. None of you matter as an elected official. You matter as a county officer. That's what the definition is, and that's what it says. And so that's where some of the fall down was in the past, is we never had sort of correlated the issue of that to the other. And that's simple things, sometimes like the auditor is an elected county officer, the treasurer is a county officer, clerk and recorder is a county officer, the JP is a county officer, the sheriff is a county officer, all those things are. So they all fall in there. But nobody ever coordinated those together, and I think MACO also didn't coordinate it very well historically after states that retired.
So the documents you're waiting for are things to clarify that?
Right, and also things that go into the checklist that has to be there for people. And we didn't really know that the Fed had done a system for this on their own. I was surprised when I learned that, because I thought Brady was a federal case, but I didn't know the Fed had really implemented by doing their own checklist, and the screwy part there is each district did it differently. So there's 9 federal circuit courts of appeals, each federal circuit court did it a different way. So I don't really need to compare them, because the one we live in is the 9th. I just want the 9th, and the one I ended up looking at, part of this is 5th, which is not us, that's not from the best. I just want the 9th, and Josh is supposed to have it. I hope
And
he
once
does.
you get all that information, then you'll look at it and.
We'll put it together, right, in a package that meets the judge's order, and then that should be what we comment on and do. Yeah,
Well,
but
so-
think of yourselves as county officers, because that's what you are, as a county officer.
So MACO was really clear that we make the distinction between an elected official or county officer that I didn't hear and department head, because we keep interchanging those and they are not the same, so we have to be very careful. So now we'll have to look and see county official rather than elected official, is that what you said?
County officer.
Yeah,
County officer. So we want to make that distinction that county officers and department heads are two different people.
And it might be too that comes from our history. When we became a state in 1889, before that we were a territory, we were a territorial officer. And I think when we made the quantum leap from being a territory to being a state, they never dropped that second word right. So we
We
might,
can't be the only county dealing with this, how are other counties?
they're having the same problem. Cascade County got waxed big time. Youth Somerville ended up upside down over a bunch of it. Miles City just went through, and I talked, their people called me and asked for some guidelines on the policy manual and stuff. And part of that comes out of a favorite Montana case called Dickey versus City of Thompson Falls, which is the one who set the standards over a whole bunch of different stuff you do in terms of process and the rest.
So anything that we're deciding here should be effective statewide, it's not just our county that would be.
Right, and what other people will do is they'll probably copy to update their stuff to get ours. We just ended up on the forum where we didn't want to be, because Cascade got through it first, and Youth Somerville, and we ended up as the third one in line with the question. And I hate to put it that simply, but it's more like it's a number game when you get whacked for it. Nobody had workers' comp claims 40 years ago. Now all of a sudden, they're all over the place. But it's just like things have changed, and we just never kept up. So this is a keep up exercise.
And look, our policy manual was keeping up in 2019. And we hadn't had one for 10 years or more, and now it's just more frequently changes are being made.
I was just concerned or had the question whether or not this was, because if we're off under MACO, it should be a statewide kind of implementation and not.
No, everybody doesn't do MACO, so I can't say that. You choose to go with MACO, every county doesn't. And there will be things in our policy that other counties don't have, because some things are specific to our county. So, but Wally just said what he's talking about is a statewide issue. I don't know.
It is for a lot of people statewide. How much you check, especially, not to pick on county attorneys and sheriff's offices and judges, but law enforcement seems to be where the highest bar exists regarding Brady disclosures, et cetera. Because clerks of courts see CJIN information, confidential stuff. Clerks and secretaries in county attorney's office see that. People in dispatch, people in detention, people in law enforcement, sheriffs see that stuff. So the high bar seems to be more for the judicial end of the government, but the high bar is there, but it keeps spinning over down the food chain farther too. And so because of that, that's sort of why the question's out there floating around. And it's kind of humorous when you talk to these all these people and ask them questions. Everybody has an issue, but nobody has an answer. And I think literally the first person to maybe make a checklist for what a judge asks for is Deb's checklist that we put together about this is what we need to do for Judge Mineta. Mark's approved it, which is the other judge that worked on these cases. And that seems to fit with what the U.S. Attorney's Office handed out for its form that Josh got at the meeting in Pelham. And I think Laslovich, which is the state's attorney, not the U.S. attorney, if I don't get it from Josh today, I'll probably call Jesse Laslovich, who's the U.S. attorney out of Great Falls, and get it from him. And all of his people who would have sent it to me in a second have all retired and getting too old. But he will get it to us if we don't get it from Josh, they'll do it. And Kellyanne helped me a lot the other day because as we've updated our policy manual 5 times in the last 4 years.
We've made amendments.
Amendments,
Yeah.
but as we did that, we never went back and said, this is an amendment of the document adopted this date in 2018. And when Kellyanne was helping me look for the dog ordinance, she helped me find, and I found the resolution that created the policy manual. So what we're doing to update it now is referencing the fact we did this date, this resolution, this deal, this is what changed this. Because now the question is, which one is the document? The changes since then never referenced we're changing what was done here. So we now have 5 conflicting messages. No, not anymore.
Well, I would say, though, to clear that confusion up, every heading in the policy manual has a revised date. So it's not like it just went in there and was amended. We note when there was a revision made. So I think that might answer the question that you're bringing up.
Right, but here's the question. Revising doesn't undo. So the problem is you don't just say we revised this provision. What you also say is we undid this provision. What was the law is no longer the law. This revision is. So we did to say this revision is what the rule we have here. We didn't say we undo this part. So what we're doing is cleaning up the floor and saying we undid these parts and this is the part. That's always a problem you have with things like CDLs when they change the rules for trucks and semis and weights. And then they go through it in the legislature, I'm sure. We forget when we adopt a new one, did we repeal the old one? And if you don't, guess what? You now have 2 rules. Which one do you comply with? So we're just cleaning up the floor, and that's fine.
Well, for the record, I would like to state we have taken guidance from general counsel. We didn't make anything up. So I'm just saying, general counsel, everything is run by them and has gotten their approval. I just want you to be confident with what we have. It is legit. And we'll move forward.
And for what it's worth, the case that drives process and the rest of it, Finke versus Thompson Falls, was to the Human Rights Commission 3 times, the Appeals Commission twice, the District Court twice, and the Supreme Court 4 times before it finally got done. So it wrote the damn book on a whole lot of the process portions that go in and make go out of it. But that's the thing that people keep going back to is this stupid case that just got a life all of its own. And before it was done, the victim and the perp, the mayor and the clerk, were both dead. But the lawyers outlived the parties. That's a happy thought.
That's the way it always is.
What?
It's the way it always is.
You didn't hear it from me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do just want to make one last reminder that whatever you end up getting, that we do want to send that to general counsel.
Oh, I will.
Before I know, I'm just reminding that
Right.
it'll go before general counsel before it is approved. And that will be on the agenda so everybody can attend and speak their piece.
Well, they need to have it because they insure it. But
Well,
also, they're kind of bettering their position out on some things because they didn't have some of the puzzle. So the more of the puzzle we get, the more of the puzzle I give to Mako, sometimes not as politely. But now they're kind of muttering their position, saying, okay, this is where we should be. So we're making progress.
Look how covered we are, 2 different attorneys 3, if we go Mako, Wally, Deb,
4.
who's the 4th?
Mako has 2 attorneys.
Oh.
And you have 2 here.
So we're covered.
Thank you. Just so you understand, and sorry it's a complicated thing and it was simple in one sense you think, but it really isn't simple. It's complicated.
All right, thank you. All right, on to the next item on our agenda at 1:30. Request to advertise and fill 1 deputy and 1 detention position. Wayne Cash.
Hello, folks.
Hello, Professor.
Okay, there's a revision to that now also. We received this week a letter of resignation from another detention officer. We terminated 1 position, now we have a resignation, so there's 2 detention slots we need approval for. And we'll start with the deputy. The deputy slot is going to be the vacancy that Ryan leaves when he becomes the sheriff. So we have to fill that vacancy as well. So we're looking for permission to advertise and interview for the 2 detention positions and 1 deputy.
Are you specifically looking for a sergeant, or are you just another deputy?
Just another deputy. The sergeant is an inner office rank more than anything else.
Okay.
So even if we come back next week to do it. Yeah, and we still would be gathering all those, so there's.
So I guess if I could say something.
You bet.
So I think as far as my position, I think I talked to you guys last week about how important it is to get somebody here and get somebody up to speed, before the first of the year. And I understand through, of course, normal hiring practice, of course, the county attorney will also be involved, is that we, almost need to make it an emergent hire, definitely post-certified. Because, we're in a position where, like I told you last week, we could possibly be down to 3 people at the beginning of the year, and that's the least amount this place has ever seen. So, bare bones, below when I even got hired here 5 years ago, when there was 4 deputies here, we could be down to possibly 3 and not being able to fill shifts. So, I think, the deputy spot, I think detention is super important to get hired as soon as possible also, because everybody knows we had an incident, several weeks back, and we can't continue to, go without. And so I think something to also help that is, we get 5 or 6 applicants to keep a hiring pool per se of a list of qualified applicants. So if we do have a position available, then we can go off that list instead of advertising and trying to get on the agenda, because this is 3 weeks since a vacancy. And so now we're 3 weeks without, and possibly looking at 2 months before we can get somebody hired.
I have to speak to that because we cannot break policy. If we're gonna rewrite policy on that, that's another thing. But we can't break policy, that's why we end up in trouble, is breaking policy. So to keep a pool and just hire without you coming before the commissioners would not be appropriate. And I'll give you the rationale. The reason the commissioners have this process is because if there were a crisis budget change, you might not be aware of that, or you go ahead and hire and the money's not there. So that's why they put this policy in place. And because we just can't break that policy. It would just get us in trouble, Ryan. So I don't think that you're really 3 weeks behind. Let's get your advertisement going. Let's get moving on that right away. And as far as hiring an emergency, how would you do that? You have to advertise. We need to get the advertising out there and do the interviews. We couldn't just go hire someone.
So I would say advertise. If we get an applicant who applies and is post-certified and fits all the criteria,
goes through all the Brady stuff from the county attorney's office and they're hireable, I think we make that.
But that's what we do, yeah, that's what we do. So you, when you do your ad, it's open until filled. So you get somebody in here, you get an application, we can interview immediately and hire. That's the way it works. We've been doing that and we'll continue doing that. We do understand the importance.
So can we advertise today?
Well, you can't get it in the paper now.
Nice try.
Approval.
The
Put it on
approval is what
Facebook,
you're
And
here for.
we can put it on the sheriff's office Facebook.
There you go.
Right, but it can't get in the paper today. But Wayne is here asking for approval because it has to be the acting sheriff or under sheriff. He's on the agenda. We're up. And then, yeah, you can go after it's approved, put that on Facebook and work with Renee to get an ad in the paper. She'll need to get that placed right away. And then it's good to go.
So for what it's worth, I'd say, see what the schedule is to also put it in like the Missoulian
Oh, we
and
do.
the Kalispell Big.
We put it everywhere.
I thought you do, yeah,
Yeah.
but I just thought.
We call the
sooner
Law
they
Enforcement
can, the better.
Academy, we call Missoula.
Yeah.
It goes everywhere, Wally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I hope that it comes soon that way.
And we've even tried some of the,
I do nationwide.
Yeah, the
we
media,
do
you know,
nationwide.
Facebook and those things.
no, it's a,
Indeed.
yes, thank you, indeed.
Indeed, though, did not pay off.
No,
That was
that
$850 and we didn't get one person to come in and,
I was just
oh no, I'm sorry if that sounded contentious. It didn't mean to be. I don't want you to go Indeed because that was $850
Yeah, that was
that
not
got us
productive at
nothing.
all for us.
So the newspaper far and wide, we contact a lot of resources, we contact Post, but I know in this case that we are looking for experienced, but we have a huge advertising network, so I don't want you to worry about that. We won't fall behind on that. And Bessie, I'm so sorry if that was contentious. It wasn't meant to be.
So what happened to the, like when Boone was around? Didn't we belong to a consortium?
Yeah,
that was hired?
I think they did away with the
Yeah, we don't,
consortium
yeah.
over,
They did.
over the whole COVID thing.
It's completely gone. There's
Right.
no consortium there.
Right. But we do that, we do Law Enforcement Academy, but again, if you're looking for experience, don't, you know, that's.
That's, we're looking for laterals.
Yeah,
And it's simply for the fact that to bring somebody that's never been in law enforcement, like Eric, for instance, so now Eric's been out on the road for a year. That's what we're doing. And he's been training on the road, so now he's headed to the academy next month. And he'll be gone for 3 months. So it's a pretty big hole. That's why if we can bring in people who have already been through the academy and already post-certified, the most they need to learn here is the area and the people. They already have the law in place.
we still have that one nagging issue. Housing, are you going with housing or you have another issue?
Well, no, I mean, ultimately, I think a way, you know, for, as far as the emergent hire, you know, if there's somebody, of course, I don't know if we resolved the one issue that I talked to you about a month ago, but if a person lives here, the person can be hired, the person's, you know, has a history of Mineral County, I mean, that's the easiest fix, you know, to the problem. But, you know, housing's always the thing, and if we can hire post-certified, of course, we'd rather have post-certified. But if we can't find post-certified, then hire within the county, if at all possible.
You know, and I agree with you, it's always best if we could hire within the county. That's the best way to go. Doesn't always work out, but that's the best way to go.
Just out of curiosity's sake, what does it cost for the academy? One person to the academy to get certified?
Just the wages is why.
Our wages and meals, and it, like, I think it's, I have to look then, but I think it's $500-600 for the 3 months with meals and housing and everything.
And then their wages on top of that.
Just that was out of curiosity.
I added this to Ryan's list too for the what it's worth department. I talked to a lot of the county attorneys at the meeting 3 weeks ago. So what I know about stuff east of Billings, stuff east of Great Falls, and Butte and South is a whole lot of places have lost a whole lot of the go they had because the Bakken is shut down. When they didn't build the other pipeline, production of the Bakken crashed some. The price of oil's high, everybody's happy. But if you pump it, where do you send it? There's nowhere to do it. So they closed down a lot of that stuff. So a lot of places are cutting taxes, cutting back. So there's a number of deputies who probably be certified in eastern Montana or Dakota or Wyoming who may well be looking. So I just think if we can put it in those papers, that might help as well.
Sure, but we do, I just want to remind
Yeah, you do.
you and everyone else that housing is still the issue. Because we advertise nationwide, and the issue always comes down, right now anyways, to that housing factor. But we will go full force on advertising.
Well, I think I've at least found 2 or 3 places that are
Affordable rent?
affordable, and people are willing to rent them to law enforcement.
Sure. I have one available too, but it's an efficiency and it's pretty high priced. So, I mean, I don't have one. I have a contact who has let me know that's available. But I just want to remind you of that because it does kind of limit us when people can't find a place to live. But again, I want to assure you, we have just a huge network of advertising that we do.
So you guys approve it?
All right, so we have a motion.
I'm afraid to talk after I snapped at Bessie.
Do we have a motion on the floor to approve the request to advertise and fill 1 deputy and 2 detention?
Okay, and I got to speak out about the 2 detention, then you're going to clear that even though we would be accepting applications, so they would be there, you want to go ahead and change that to 2 detention?
Yes.
Okay. I move that we approve the request of the Sheriff's Office Department to advertise and fill the vacancy of 1 deputy and 2 detention officers.
I would second that motion. Any further comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry if she snapped at you, Betsy.
Jeez, Betsy, I think
Sometimes-
it's because I didn't have any food today.
Sometimes she's out of control.
Hungry.
She hasn't had her soup.
I know,
Yeah. I'm sitting over here eating all the candy and she didn't get anything.
That's the problem, we're eating.
All right.
I'm all better now, I had a bite.
Didn't you wrangle Ryan up some cookies?
I'm afraid cookies would send me over the moon. You know, just because
Their
of raw
diet.
food.
They're good cookies.
Their diet though.
Well, you were talking earlier.
He said he wouldn't
about
share with us.
Oh, well, yeah.
Gulch.
He and Lindauer about had a wrestling match last week.
Which is hard now.
All right, well, whatever.
So they sent me back a note and said, yeah, we'll meet with the commissioners when they can. So I was gonna try to find the time to do that. And so the company that owns it is here, but not here, but the lawyer is here. And she works for Jasper Curb. But she'll come and sit down when we can, so I didn't know what a schedule you guys had was. I was trying to find a time that worked for you all.
I'd rather do it on a commissioner's day.
I think we can do that, yeah. I just was wondering, you wanna shoot for January 13th? Okay, let's do that, if that's okay, Wayne, let's do that.
Yeah. Well, we didn't ask her.
Yeah, but if that's okay, I just was trying to get a firm time to do it.
Yeah.
I thought, we should do that.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Should we do that right now? We have
What?
I'm just gonna bring to you who we are hiring for. Is Emily coming? Is someone coming for MSU? No, it's just us.
Well, is it time? 1:45.
Yep.
Does January 13th work for the meeting with the people that are
Yeah,
around?
can eat
Number
them.
7, could it have my name on it? Not
Oh,
good.
I think we're, well,
Do you know what he just said?
I can't, I'm so.
January 13th, we're the same.
Movie Swordfish,
what?
the character.
The schedule, I'm not a lawyer.
Have you seen that movie? You need to
Talk to
watch
Renee.
it.
Talk to Renee. About January 13th.
Okay, but I want to find out with you guys if that's okay first, but if that's something we need to do, we'll do that.
Let me see if we have anything going on. Nothing in my calendar.
No, let me, oh, hey, look, mine's blank.
January 13th should work.
All right, sounds good.
That'll be good, yeah.
Yeah. See
Oh, yeah,
what
I
they
just
got
wanna
to
just
say.
ask you a question.
Sure. You're glad today, girl.
I am glad. I love glad.
Great, so.
What's that? Yeah?
Two of the maps, a while ago, split Mineral County in half. And I put in the word about that, I brought it back together, but now the last one, last Friday, they included Lowell Creek with us. And I said, no, at least if it's gonna be, that direction, keep it.
Petty Creek, anyway.
Clark Fork down.
Yeah.
Not over the top, but, they were gonna be working on that again yesterday, I didn't hear what they finally came out.
Oh.
District.
Cool. Yeah, we don't need Missoula County.
Well, we didn't even split either, they split it.
I just still don't understand what the commissioners
The
are
west end would
Right.
have been Thompson Falls, the east end.
Really?
Yeah. Mineral County with 4,500 people, they split it.
Then we're disenfranchised on the west end, last thing we need is Thompson Falls.
I just wanna make sure. Yeah. So then the valuation is
Hello, Don. Hey, Don. Hey, Don.
Oh, you did?
Hello, Don.
Okay, sounds good.
Don, we have one more item on the agenda.
I'm sorry, I'm busy talking.
MSU Administrative Assistant new hire.
Okay, are you or am I? You, okay, so, the MSU office would like to hire Jenny Miller for their full-time administrative secretary that has been open. And because they have a little bit of different rules than what we have here at the county, they bring it before the commissioners, and the commissioners approve or deny that hire. So I move that the county hires Jenny Miller to fill the position of administrative assistant for MSU.
I would second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, it's easy.
Renee. January 3rd. January 3rd. I think she's going to Mexico. Aren't you going on that honeymoon? Destination
Hey,
wedding
no,
is what it's called.
No, I didn't get an invite.
You never did check to make sure if she changed her last name, did you?
Well, she has.
Yeah, right?
I'm sure glad that happened.
Thank God it's over. I don't know. No, I don't.
Well, sure, that's what and I don't care if they shouldn't advertise it.
Oh, he did. Well, I did not get his application. Renee might have, but I. Oh, then he must have given it to Renee when I wasn't here.
I said, so what's the name? I said, I put in for, what was all the positions? And it's just one still open in the treasury. No.
I would, because he's a man. No. And he's smart.
He is smart.
I think they should. Detention level, be on the speed all the time. Think it over. Because
Don't
I
matter to
thought,
me.
no, I know.
He's the one that put it down.
No, I know. But I mean, just think about what.
The truck was back before had a stainless steel tank. That's all.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I had to drive more.
Is that out in your car?
Yes,
I've never
yeah,
been
yeah.
to say something like that.
Yep, yep, you're right.
You fix that heater, I'm gone. He said, no, we offered to go get a windshield heater.
And we know he's a good worker. You'll have to pry it out of his cold dead hands. Did you adjourn the meeting? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
All right, meeting's adjourned.
For sure.
Yeah, it is now.
For the record, I'd like to say to Wally about whether we have the right to see the evaluations. Absolutely.
I'm sure. Why not?
Why didn't you say you're bullish?
I didn't think that's what he was saying.
Yeah, that's how he started it out. I did, but I'd like it to be a subject. So why didn't you say that?
Everybody went.
No, we didn't have the answer.
Yeah.
You look what they did on the trestle. There's no movie up there, they don't rely on the government.
No.
They got $50,000 donations for the engineering. They got donations to buy it. And too often we come to the government.
Well, we're not here asking for money. Oh, by the way, we're here asking for money.
Yeah.
And
I didn't like that.
It's a benefit to the county.
Oh, sure, yes, and it would be worth the $2,500.
Because the alternate is so much.
But
Yeah.
the other thing that kills me about those grants, and I don't know if it's just, them or what.
Not the same.
The people come in.
No, not you.
And it's,
I know.
I gotta know today because this grant's due tomorrow. You know what?
No. 3 months.
Don't bring that to me, because I could give a shit whether it's due tomorrow. You're the one that should have brought it in here.
And you know what? I was kicking myself on the death doula, why I didn't ask her. When did you know that you needed this money? And why do we have to make this decision today? I wish I would have asked that, but now I know. I will, because it is to,
Yeah, but I see the benefits, but the other thing, it isn't finished.
Yeah.
As a taxpayer in the long run,
Well, I
that's
mean-
why not, the resort board gets money from the tax.
And she was right, every penny that we got's gonna count.
Yeah.
Short stuff there gets done.
They might,
Looking his
yeah.
jobs and not accepting any money for his hours.
I know.
I wanted to go. Yeah, That's not how you work, right?
2,000 hours is more than a year's work. He hasn't worked on that for a year.
Oh, been up, stayed up.
And Don, I have to ask, is the state boundary file in the office?
you know it is, and you can show Renee where it is.
Because I was gonna meet with testers,
I would think there'd be some.
the new Deb Cranston for this area.
Oh, really? He got somebody.
I didn't know she
Do they know
was.
about more than social security?
No, I don't know.
I guess we'll find out.
But anyway, I was gonna.
Clayton,
Good.
am I being filmed eating my soup?
Trying to pull Tester in, that was what Department of Revenue suggested, bringing Tester in. So he and Dave's are maybe on the same page.
Cool.
Am I being filmed eating my soup?
It's a fun set of maps and a fun set of history with you.
I don't know. You might.
Could ask Montana.
It doesn't look like
it.
Shoshone County's map. And I went to the Department of Revenue and they last survey we
Bessie.
have shows what Shoshone.
Listen, we're
County
working
did.
on a good relationship here,
They
rescuing
said,
animals. You
"No,
can't
that's
hold
not
it
the
against
state line,
me.
that's not
I will.
the
Did you call me?